Okay. So we got that. We're good. Okay. Boom. And we're gold.
Are we live?
We're live.
We're live. Wow. How exciting.
Yeah. No, this is cool.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Jeff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm,
Well, let me say first, I'm excited that you're starting a show.
Thank you.
I like the inquisitive nature that you've got going on, and you know, like you're always seeking new things, and so I know the conversations you're gonna have on the show are gonna be a blast.
Thanks
Yeah.
for telling me that. Thanks for telling me that.
For
That's
sure,
what I got.
for sure.
So Danny, I appreciate you coming in. You helped me out a bunch just with these little knickknacks. When you don't know what you're doing at all, it's very intimidating to start anything.
Yeah, totally. Well, so like I remember, like just anything with recording, anything with technical stuff. Like, you know, it starts with, I know with me, it started with like getting a MacBook when I was just graduating high school and like getting into music. I had like a MacBook Pro from like 2009, and it was like you learn GarageBand, and then you have an idea. You're like, what if I set this up here, and what if I set this up? So, you know, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I have known for, I guess, like a little while now.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not perfect, you know, but you get a mixing board and all that stuff. So
sure.
But it's cool. It's also fun, like when you plug it in and it works.
Yeah.
And you're like, we did this.
Yeah.
Like we got it.
It's like, oh, learn a little something new. And it's not really all that complicating.
No.
It really isn't. You start breaking out, okay, you got the strips, that's that connected to that, okay, it's not. Yeah. It's just when you look at it as an overall picture, it looks messy.
Right.
It looks fuzzy.
Well, because, you know, you're told like, oh, this is technical, oh, this is hard. Like, there's a reason why professionals did this. And you know, there was like, you know, we've been talking a lot about like gatekeeping, and like, there's no gatekeeping anymore. Yeah. Like you get, you know, some mics, you don't even need a soundboard, you know, you got one and it's great, but yeah, you just go for it. So, but I'm excited, man. Like you got a show, you're going for it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in it. Yeah, thanks for coming down, setting this up. So I kind of want to get into a subject with you because I know you are in education.
Yes. And
when I look at what's going on with when I see about the kids that are growing up in the technological age we're living in, I think they're facing a lot of hurdles. Because I think we struggle with our own addiction to technology. So I look at them and say, where do they stand a chance, in a sense, when it comes to breaking away and
from technology?
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the way I look at technology right now in education and just with students in general, like, so let's separate technology from education for a second. Okay. And let's just talk about teenagers and technology. Okay. Right. Like the big thing that I think a lot of teachers, and I'm not saying most, I'm not saying all, like, but a lot of teachers, that's the question, is like, how do we get them to interact? How do we get them to interface with people? How do we separate them from the phone? And that's their like level of social interaction. But the real thing that we have to kind of address is like teachers or as a society is that's their mode of communication and socialization, right? So think about millennials, right? Because we're like, you know, just straight up millennials. We were both born 91. Yeah. Okay, we're 29, approaching our 30s. What does socialization look like to us? Right? Like, so like, let me ask you that. Like, what's your main method of socialization right now? Like, how are we socializing?
Through phone.
Through phone.
I mean, that's just what it is. Yeah. But we didn't always have that. So it's kind of like we were able to bridge a gap where it's like, you know, you didn't have access to everybody at all times. Yeah. And they're growing up with just that. So are they missing a huge chunk where it's kind of like, do you know what I'm saying? Well,
yeah, and that's where like, okay, so, you know, and I'm not even playing devil's advocate here. Sure. Like these are just like, this is the way I look at it. Yeah. So, yeah, we as millennials, right? What did we do when we wanted to hang out with a friend? Well, if they live close, we walked up like heart beating like to the door. We knocked on the door and we hoped it was the parent that we knew and not like the dad that we don't.
The parent we liked.
Right? And then, you know, because it's like you walk up and you knock on the door and it's like if it's the mom and you've seen the mom, you're like, hi, can, you know, Ryan play? And then, you know, they're like, no, he's doing homework, or, let me see, Ryan, right? And then like, you know, if Ryan doesn't want to hang out, then there's nothing he can do. Like, I'm here, right? So, and then sometimes it's the dad. And then you're like, I've never seen this man before.
He's usually at work.
And you're like, is this Ryan's house, right? So we grew up with this like challenging, and this is something we can talk about later, but like those I think are important stress. Like that's like low stakes stress.
It's good to go through that.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and so when we look back at how we socialized, right? It was going up to the door, or it was calling up, and it's like, is this Ryan's house, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, can he get? I don't know, right? And so that's what we look at socialization, and we spent more time interfacing with each other, right? Like I skateboarded when I was a kid, and that's what I like, so. It would be like a group of 4 of us, and we'd skateboard terribly. We'd put wax on curbs and pretend that we could grind. And then, and then you're in school, and all you have is yourself and the people around you, and that's how you talk, and that's how you communicate. Okay, so then fast forward to like we're freshmen in high school. 14, 15. That's, I think, the turning point for a lot of us to when we got phones, right?
Yeah,
when was your first phone?
About that. Freshman?
Yeah.
Freshman year. But, and they were simple phones. Obviously, they were simple phones. It was like T9,
bricks,
Nokia.
Yeah.
Is that the phone everyone had?
Yeah, of course. Of course. That's like the phone that like, oh, you signed up for a wireless plan, I see. Here you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was in 8th grade when I got my first little Nokia brick, and I think I jumped in a pool with it like 3 separate times. Oh. So like I had to even memorize phone numbers. So like
that's talk about a lost art.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm so terrible at memorizing phone numbers now. I think I have like my mom's phone, and then my dad's. Even my fiance, I don't have her phone number memorized, and people are like, "You're a terrible, terrible human being." No. And even my fiance is like, How do you not have my phone number memorized?
Do you feel guilty about that? Do you think maybe I should put a little effort?
No, I don't at all. It's like maybe I should, but I don't know. Here's the deal. My phone number is so easy because it's just constant 5s and 7s.
Nice.
Like
wow.
No one. You hear my phone number one time, you're gonna memorize it.
Nice.
It's no. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Put that. Hey.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. That's what I want is like students and parents calling me. But okay, so like I'm tangenting so hard here, but
it's okay.
But the idea is like, okay, we learned that face-to-face interaction. We learned the home phone interaction. Yeah. We learned the knock on the door interaction.
Risky.
How many high school kids do you think right now have ever gone up unknowingly, whether their friend is like available or not, to knock on the door and see if they were
none,
yeah,
right?
None
Or like 1%.
If they were even in elementary school, they're not doing that. Right? Because what did they have? Hey, Mom, can you call so-and-so? Or they had iPod. Remember the iPod Touches?
Yeah.
And they all put like messaging apps on there. So, I mean, these kids were texting each other when they were 8 and 9.
Yeah.
All right. So, like, let's take my students, which are like 16, 17. Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, for millennials, we had face-to-face interaction. We had AOL Instant Messenger in the sweet years of like 6th grade, 7th grade. We get a phone, and I didn't even have texting until my sophomore year, and even then it was like 200 texts, right?
Yeah, that's funny how you used to only have...
I know. Now it's like you don't even think about that.
No.
By the way, we're like dating ourselves so much. Like we're 29, we're still young.
I know we're still young.
But it feels like...
I like to feel older, though. You know what I mean? I like to be like, oh, I'm older. But
well, it's because that's the dream when you're younger, right?
You want to be older. Then when you get older, you want to be younger.
Yeah, it's because responsibility is like, the weight.
Yeah.
All right. So we had our cell phone age, then we had our smartphone age, right? And now we're immersed. Like the difference between how millennials interface with technology and Gen Z, not very different. We have access to the same things. We can like a Gen Z person is going to spend more time on TikTok than a millennial.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I think
you're right.
I didn't even really get into Vine. So,
I didn't either.
No.
I never jumped on. It looked fun. It looked cool, but I never was like, oh, let me make an account and like have a...
It feels like just inside jokes taken to a like crazy level.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I don't know.
What killed Vine? Instagram?
No, lack of
nothing?
ads.
Nothing
lack
killed.
of ads. It didn't monetize.
Oh, so we're making no money.
Vine was like, hey, we got this great platform. And then people are like, that's great.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And there was no ads.
For like 2 months, everyone was talking about it. And then it just went away.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Yik Yak. Remember that thing?
I do. That's not around anymore.
It's not around.
Oh, I didn't know.
You can monetize it. Okay. All right. So we go back to the question.
Yeah.
You know, like how do we? So what's the deal? So now you've got these Gen Z, and Gen Z has been tied to technology for a very long time. A lot of my high school kids, when they were 9, let's say when they were 12, right? They had an iPad in front of them, right? They had an iPod Touch before then. Mm-hmm. Okay, they've been dealing with apps. They're the legitimate kid that came up to you and were like, "Do you have any games on your phone?" That's the generation. Yeah. But how did they start communicating with each other? They weren't calling each other on the phone. They were texting. Yeah. They were messaging each other. Like, imagine if we just started at AOL Instant Messenger. We skipped the phone conversation.
All of that.
We skipped the walk up to the door. So the real question isn't like, how do we separate them from technology? It's actually more like, how do we accept the fact that that's how they socialize? And we need to bring education through that medium.
I get what you're saying, but a part of me almost looks back on those days when we had to go knock at the door. We had to, call and you weren't really sure if they were going to be there, who was going to answer. It's like that. I don't know if I'm looking back on that with just like rose-colored glasses, but to me that seems right. You know what I mean? That seems like a very natural way to go about life. That's how it's been done for the last 10,000 years or something. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, it's because it's challenging, right? Okay, so one of the things I would suggest is that millennials deal with a lot of stress and anxiety and mental health issues and things like that. But Gen Z, man, I think you up it even more.
I would agree with you.
Okay,
definitely.
And one of the reasons, and I am not like I got my degree in English and I got my master's in curriculum and instruction. I took a couple of psychology classes. This is totally an opinion.
We're not doctors.
Yeah, I'm an idiot when it comes to this. Okay, but I think there is something to be said about. So there's a concept, and this is coming from a book that I think was like really important to understanding some of this. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. Yeah, Jonathan Haidt, Greg Lukianoff, and they discuss this concept of anti-fragility. Okay, which is like there are certain things that are fragile. Okay, like an egg is pretty fragile. You drop an egg, it's gonna break. You tap on an egg too hard, it will break. Okay. You can't make an eggshell stronger. I mean, I guess but there's nothing that you can do to say like, all right, that eggshell, if I throw it up against a wall, I did something to it and it's not going to break. Maybe if you had glue or something, I don't know. It might be a bad example to use an egg. All right, but there are things where if you test them and you throw challenges their way, they get stronger. Yeah. Our immune system. Okay, take somebody that's in a bubble their entire life and then expose them to the world. Okay, disease, illness, like they'll get sick.
They're done.
They haven't built up an immune system, right? Okay, kids can be considered to be what's called like anti-fragile, all right? Something where as long as they are not pushed to their breaking point, right? And like, I don't want to suggest that you should be like finding that breaking point. Of course. It's just saying like when you test a kid and when you have them go through certain stresses, they actually get stronger. They improve. So I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, like around 7 or 8, if the family was like, hey, we're gonna do pizza night, I'm like, yes, I love pizza. This is great. They'd be like, Daniel, because that's what I go by at home. I'm like, Daniel, you have to call the pizza place. Ooh. I'm 8 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 8 years old. What do I do?
Responsibility.
I don't know these people. I'd always be like, I shouldn't be talking to strangers. I'd be like, that's not going to work. Like, okay, but that's stress. But is it low stakes stress? Yeah. It's so low stakes. Okay, but okay, all right. Hey, we're at the grocery store. Give the money to the cashier. I don't know. Okay, all right.
High stress for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Low stress in real world.
All right, you want to go see if your buddy wants to go play? All right, walk up to his door. Ask the mom. Okay, so these are like low stakes stress, right? This is low stakes. I'm not going to die from that, right? But I feel like one difference between Gen Z and millennials, and definitely Gen X and definitely baby boomers, is that, things are a little bit easier. Maybe they haven't been put through as much. Maybe they've been protected by more. Maybe their parents have, coddled them a little bit too much. All right, and that's what leads to a lot of stress. And I'll tell you, my classrooms are full of kids with high anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be really uncomfortable reading in front of the class, and that's natural. But I'm talking like mortified. Stepping in front of the class and speaking, yeah, being scared about that is very natural. But I'm talking about mortified. And we might have felt that way, but at the end of it, we probably had to do it. If you look at, you know, certain accommodations on 504s or IEPs, these are things for, you know, students with learning disabilities or students that, you know, need accommodations to help them. There are some accommodations that say like, do not call on this kid to present in front of the class. Mm-hmm. Always allow this child to present to you personally, right? Or don't call on a kid unless they raise their hand. All right, I get it, and I'm going to follow that. I'm not somebody who reads that and I'm like, oh, I know what's best.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to follow that plan because legally I have to.
Sure.
But on top of that, you know, at this point, yeah, that's in place for that student to succeed. But it could also, and again, this is, you know, I didn't get my degree in special education. You know, I didn't get my degree in psychology. But these are things where I ask myself, like, how long has that accommodation been in place?
Sure.
What if that has been in there since the 5th grade or the 6th grade? And again, I could be an idiot, and that might not even be an accommodation you can put in elementary school. But what if it is?
You're on the right path. I know where you're going.
Yeah.
I see where you're going. It's like we got to test them a little bit. If you don't ever test them, and so they've never been tested,
Right.
how are we expecting them to get out into the real world? And that's the goal
Sure.
of an educator, right? You want to set
Yeah.
them up for the most success, so when they're out of your care,
Yeah.
they go into the world and they flourish, whether they go to college,
Yeah.
whether they don't, whatever.
Yeah.
So you putting these kind of like artificial barriers on them to not test them at all in this very safe environment, which is school should be safe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Should be a safe
That's the
environment
idea.
where they can try out
Yeah.
new things. They're trying to figure out who they are. We're all trying to figure out who we are.
Yeah.
But school should be set up for them. So putting those artificial barriers on them doesn't even allow them the chance to overcome that obstacle that they've been facing maybe since they were a kid or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and what I would say is you now got to suggest you got to ask the question, okay, are they artificial barriers or were the barriers already there because of the psyche of the student, you know, because of what the kid's going through? Because again, it's to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
It's to say, like, all right, you know what, those accommodations, you got to always assume those accommodations are there to help the student. The idea of the accommodation is to make sure that, all right, we're on like more of an even playing field, like this concept of like equity, right? Like
Sure.
not equality, but equity. You know, hey, this kid, make sure that, you know, when they take this test, they have like an audio version, right? It's not going to make it easier for them, but it's going to put them on a different playing field. So, yeah, the question is, you know, do the accommodations help in some ways and then hurt in others? I think you could make the argument that, you know, certain accommodations could potentially hurt a student. But again, that's never up for the teacher to decide.
Sure.
And you have specifically diagnosticians to do that. So, you know, to me, you know, if it's my kid and I see they're struggling with social anxiety, you know, if a diagnostician says, like, I really think that we should limit how much stress your kid goes through in class, I really think that we should do an accommodation where the teacher, you know, shouldn't call on them without raising their hand. Maybe my first reaction to that is to have a conversation with the teacher and say, hey, you know, clearly my kid is struggling in your class and clearly they are feeling uncomfortable speaking. What are some solutions we can come to where we can build the capacity for my kid to maybe volunteer to talk, but I also want you to maybe give them some low risk opportunities, like give them some softballs. Right?
Have them go up and
like
knock on the door and ask if the kid is there. That's like setting up those.
Yeah. So, but then that also puts something on me as the parent too.
Yeah.
And I don't have a kid. This is where it's you know, perfect world, right? Like,
course.
oh, I'm going to be the best parent.
Of course.
So good. My kid's going to be great. They might be like the biggest jerk ever.
Yeah, they might.
I don't know.
You don't know.
They might end up
Probably
like
not though. You're a nice guy.
I mean,
they
we'll
wouldn't.
see. We'll see,
mean,
right? But it does put some pressure on the parents.
What about talking with the child? What about pulling him aside and saying, hey, look, I noticed that you had this thing, and I know you're nervous about raising your hand.
Yeah.
What are you nervous about? Why are you nervous?
Sure.
How can we work through this? Look, I'm trying to set you up for future success.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here with you forever. The school's not going to be here with you forever. You're going to eventually move out into the real world.
And then right now, all the kids hearing is, oh, shoot, college is coming up.
Don't worry.
And now they're,
they can do that. But I'd say, I'm not even talking. College is not real anyways. College is its own little artificial nest that everyone falls in after high school because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's got its own little ecosystem and norms and conventions.
Sure.
So
I'm talking about setting that child up for the next 70 years of its life and going, look, why are you so nervous about this? How can I help you? Is there anything that you think you could do that we could kind of start chipping away at this fear? Because I want you to be successable in this life. And to be successful, you need to speak in front of the class.
I think the key thing that you said there is like, what can I do? Right? Like, how can we do
together,
this, right?
mutual?
Because there's a certain level of what's appropriate to ask a kid, right?
Yeah.
Because what if the reason that they're really nervous in class is because something traumatic happened to them, right? And then it's not our job as teachers to dive in and be therapists, right? There's that fine line, and that's the really difficult part. But yeah, asking them like, hey, you know what? If you're nervous to talk in class, what are things that I can do to help you, right? Is there anything in my classroom that's giving you stress that we can maybe change or adjust? Would you like it if is there a cue you could give me, like a subtle cue to say like, hey, I'm good, but I don't want to raise my hand. And I've actually done this. Last year I had a kid who was very much like that, had that specific accommodation, and that's the conversations you have. You say, you and then you talk to the parents, and that's the big thing. Is like, I talked with that student's parents and said, hey, this kid is, your child is doing well in my class. I would like to see this. I would like to see that. What can we do? What can we work on together? And so it's very much like, it's the idea of the education community. And that community involves the student. It involves the parents. It involves administration. Like, everything comes together. And so, but, there's no denying. I mean, these kids, they're dealing with stress. They're dealing with issues. And we just got to assume that, hey, they're there to learn. Let's give them the best environment to do that.
Sure. Could you say that some of their stress is attributed to just like the almost bread trail of information that follows them through social media? It's, when we were kids and you moved schools, it's pretty much like you didn't exist.
Right.
After you left that old school, you were gone, and once that new school, you had no information. You could kind of like refresh and restart yourself continually. Now it's like, I don't know. I don't know how this is because I'm not in the school system.
Yeah.
But
you're not even really on social media.
I'm not even really that much on social media. So does that follow them to where they try to say they go to a new school, or maybe they had a bad time with their old one? Yeah. They're going to a new school. Maybe they had a lot of crap in the past. Will those old kids from the old school follow them in a sense of social media, and like maybe if they're continually getting harassed and then anything they try to do, it's like they're being followed by this digital past?
I think that's very possible, and I think that does happen, right? Cyberbullying is like one of the things that we as teachers have a really hard time seeing, because you don't want your you don't want teachers looking up kids' social media to see what are the interactions that they're having. Because you don't want teachers looking up kids' social media anyway. It just feels weird and inappropriate. So, the kids are really the ones that hold on to that burden, and they're the ones that, either open themselves up to it or close themselves off to it. But there's benefits and there's negatives to both. All right. Let's say you close yourself off from social media. Okay. Well, you're a 15 or 16-year-old kid and you've closed yourself off to social media. How are you talking with kids?
Yeah, that doesn't seem the correct solution.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you've got the thing where it's like, okay, let's say you're being cyberbullied. You've switched schools because of all of the pressure that you've had from other kids and abuse and things like that from other kids. Okay, yeah, you could block them and things like that. But some of them don't. Some of them feel trapped by this, like, if I block them, I'm running away, and I don't want to be seen as running away. There's so much that goes on.
God, I feel bad for these kids. I really do.
Yeah, I think
it seems so complex.
I think the hardest thing and we were talking a little bit about this yesterday. The hardest thing that kids deal with now is like the fear of missing out, right? FOMO. And we had a little bit of that in the MySpace, MySpace and Facebook, but like, you know, when we were in high school, let's say we were seniors in high school, no one is taking a picture on their phone and uploading it immediately to Facebook. No one's Snapchatting. That didn't exist when we were in high school.
No.
Okay, so if there was a party or a hangout and we weren't invited, we at least had to wait a day to see
and
it.
you kind of found out about it on Monday.
Yeah.
When you went to school and they're like, did you go to John's party? And you're like,
and then you would feel that like, oh, man, I wish oh well.
But then you're here. You're already at school.
And you might dwell on it, but imagine you're sitting at home and you're like super bored, and maybe you texted a friend and you're like, hey, what's going on? What are you up to? And then you check their Snapchat story.
Ooh.
And it just updated like 2 minutes ago, and they're hanging out and they're having a good time with their friends, and you're not there.
And you weren't invited.
And now you're sitting there. And you keep looking at Snapchat and you keep seeing it updating, and you see your friends that also went there, and it's like, what is that feeling like? What is that feeling as a I honestly can't even imagine my high school self. Take all that ball of insecurity.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? So
right.
I'm so glad you said that.
Because
it's easy for us to look and go like, just don't worry about it, kid.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter.
It gets better, right?
It gets better.
You know, it's like,
you're going to get comfortable in yourself, but like in that moment with that ball of insecurity.
Right.
Yes.
Like, okay, we know who we are, and we're still figuring it out on the way.
Yeah.
Okay, but we know that if somebody doesn't like us at this age, we're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's like your boss, and you're like, okay.
Sure.
I do want my boss to.
Sure.
But yeah, if it's a peer, like even if it's a friend that we've known for a while, there comes a point where you're like, I don't care if they didn't invite me to this thing. But when you're 15 and 16 and your entire self is like, am I liked? Am I disliked? Am I coming off as annoying? Did I say a good story there? I mean, so, you know, I call Gen Z the broadcast generation. Every kid feels the pressure of, I got to create, I got to experience, I got to be a part of, right? And there's obviously exceptions. There's going to be introverts all the time.
Sure.
Okay, but what if you're 16 and like 2 of your friends had TikToks that got thousands of views?
Yeah.
And you're like, I want that. And now you're feeling this pressure. You're like, I need to come up with an idea. I need to come up with a video. You shoot a video, and then like
it sucks.
10 views, and you have like,
damn it, I suck.
I know, you're just like,
then you spiral. Then you're spiraling down this hole. You didn't get invited to the party.
Yeah.
Your friends have these TikToks. They seem so funny.
I know.
You're not funny. Why are you not funny?
Oh, your friend is in a summer home. Why do you not have a summer home? Are you poor? You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
my
gosh,
God.
all this
Talk about
pressure.
just the spiral.
I know
that could form from this.
And little do you know that your friends' parents are like in massive debt, you know, but they're not going to see that.
No, of course not.
And then your friend, look how beautiful they are, right? Like,
then you find out your friend has the same problems you do, and they
Yeah.
think the same things about themselves.
Yeah.
That's a really comforting thing.
Right.
Once you
learn
get
that later, though.
I know. I'm looking at it from older.
Right.
We learned this through our 20s.
Yes.
You don't know this when you're 16. You don't know, like,
No.
oh, we all deal with insecurities. We all have issues. We're all going
Right.
through this journey that we have no idea what we're doing together.
Right.
But at 16, you're not.
Yeah,
you're thinking,
no.
I didn't go to the party. I'm not funny.
I,
no girls.
I, right?
Ego,
You know, it's just
right? Yeah. I'm not this.
You know,
I'm
and it's not that they're self-centered. I mean, that's literally like, it's
That's
like
a
the
human
definition of
condition.
being a teen is like you, right?
Yeah.
Is my hair good? Is my, you know, and like, I still think about that, you know, I'm just like, because my hair looks disgusting. No,
It's
so
beautiful.
long.
It's beautiful.
Oh, I mean, Felicia, my fiance, hates it. She's just like, that's gotta go. One time I pulled it back. Like, I just pulled my hair back and into this, like, almost Steven Seagal. Like, and she was just like, okay, I need to not look at you for, like, an hour.
Yeah, I need to wash this
whatever
memory.
that image was.
That's hilarious.
You know, and so, yeah, and, I mean, I remember being in high school and the things that I remember looking at, this is so dumb, but I remember being, like, 17, and I was in football. I was in the best shape of my life, but I was skinny. Like, I was a skinny dude. You know, I was one of those kids who was like, I eat as much as I can, and I never gain a pound.
Yeah.
And how much I wish I could just go back to that kid and be like, stop.
Yeah,
you're like,
you're good.
please. Like you're, well, not even that. It's like stop developing this appetite that's going to continue.
Oh, you're saying
your whole life
because you continue to eat because you're like, I don't get anything.
Yeah,
Cheeseburger.
Like, I remember being like a senior in high school, and I was like, watch me eat 2 Chipotle burritos. And people are like, whoa, that's crazy. And then my stomach's like, I guess we're just going to expand. And like, and now I'm like, I can't, I've got my struggles, right?
We all have our struggles.
So, but I remember being 16, 17, being in football. I'm much smaller than everybody else. I still work out. I do the best I can. And I remember looking at my wrists and just saying like, these are the skinniest wrists. These wrists. No one could love these wrists. No one could. Who could ever? Right?
That's so funny.
Like, it's like, so I'd be like, like just hold, hands in
hiding
pockets,
your wrists,
or just, I did a lot of this. You'll see a lot of pictures of me in high school with this.
Is it because of the wrists?
Yes, about the wrist.
That's
how crazy.
Well, it's crazy.
Is that like even today? I'm like, I'm a bigger dude, but my wrists still are like pretty.
Look small. Do you always do that? Like, can I wrap it around?
Right? Like watches, I'm always just like, why do I always go all the way to like the Who knows? Like, and for some kids, it's like, oh. Are my eyes okay? I know. Like, do I have a droopy eyelid? Like, what about my ears? Do they poke out too much? Like, what? You're always gonna find something.
For sure.
Yeah,
Everyone has those little things. It was my neck when I always thought I had a long. Dude, one guy said I had a neck like a giraffe in like literally kindergarten.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That's it.
Stuck forever.
Yeah. That's all. That's all.
It's like, it's so funny that little seed.
Yeah.
That whatever kid planted.
Sure.
Grew.
I mean, it's like we're designed to just be super critical.
Sure. We never look at the right? We don't do that in our lives in general. We're always looking at negative. What's wrong? Why do I not have this? Right. Even though you look around, you're going.
Like, what if you have the best knees in the business, but you'll never know that, because no one cares about knees.
No one. Yeah.
Right.
No.
Like, I could have like the world's greatest knees. When you look at some people's knees though, and you're just like, what is happening with that?
Yeah, it looks weird.
Do you ever see? This is really weird, but do you ever see like faces in knees? Have you ever seen that?
I've seen something like pictures of faces and knees.
Yeah, like this is dumb, and I shouldn't like just show you a picture on my phone. But
is this your knee or whose knee is this?
No, this is the craziest thing. I saw this when I was scrolling through my Facebook, and I was just like, there's a bunch of knees in this picture, and I zoomed in on this one knee. Look at this. Like, there's a...
Oh, that has a hairline?
It's got a
whose
nose.
Knee is that?
It's like a random person.
That's a
on
small
Facebook.
baby in that knee.
Yeah, there's a baby in that knee. Like, I don't... Like, we'll just...
Put it up there.
Right? Look at that. That's wild. I think you can even see it on there.
That's so funny. Oh my! Wait, and that's just a random.
That's a random.
You found that?
Yeah, like that was me just going through Facebook, and I was like, "What's going on?" Like, it's like I could see. You know how like you can like, it's like almost like you're conditioned to see distress. Like you can look at a picture and like something will look weird to you, and you're like, "Hold on." Right? It's like my brain registered a face.
It's the unconscious going like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, it's like my brain registered a face from like distance, and that's zoomed in.
Yeah.
Right? That's a zoom in on that knee.
Yeah.
Right? But even if you looked at the zoom out, you would still be able to see it.
You would still go straight to the knee.
Yeah, so I remember looking through and I was just like, what the?
Yeah.
And then it's like, enhance. I was like, there's a
small child.
How do I get that child out of that knee?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's a weird tangent.
What's the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where that thing is on his shoulder and it goes, open your mind? Do you know that movie? What movie is that?
Total Recall.
Total Recall. That's what that knee looked like. Open your mind. That's what that knee reminded me of.
Yeah, just the face.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I wonder if she thinks she has bad knees. She probably didn't even notice.
No, and I would never tell her that.
I look at my knees. I don't think I have great knees.
I think guys, we don't like shave our knees, so like it's hidden behind this like thicket of hair. Yeah. But like women, it's. Who knows? I don't know. I bet there's.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
back to her wrist.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like I kept thinking, like my little wrist bone here. I was like, whose wrist bone is more defined?
Who's gonna love this?
Right. Again, yeah. Who will ever love this man? Like, who could ever find this? I still think today, like Felicia hasn't even seen my wrists.
Yeah, you always keep them covered.
Just like, hey.
Anytime you see her, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be like at my wedding with like these poofy 18th century poofs.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I think that
I would love the poofs, like Prince poofs.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't he have
perfect.
poofs?
Yeah.
He poofed.
He had poofs. Yeah, he had wrist.
He had poofs. What if he
So
had?
dumb.
Now, what if he had the wrist poofs because he was insecure about his wrists?
What if that was the only thing me and Prince had in common? Was a deep insecurity
of your
wrists.
wrists, and y'all could have connected on that?
Yeah. I don't know of anybody who has like, oh, my wrists are too skinny.
Better to have skinny wrists than I would think like too large a wrist. Too large a wrist would be weird.
I think then though you're self-conscious about other things too. Right?
Well, yeah.
Like I'm a big guy, but I'm still like, what's going on with my wrists? Like they should be bigger, but I don't know.
It's okay.
It's so dumb.
It's dumb.
I'm talking too much about my wrists.
We went off on the wrist. That's fine.
But yeah, you know. But anyway, yeah.
You look down at them. But anyways, these fucking wrists.
Just like God. But yeah, no, I mean, it's you know, it's my cross to bear, just these wrists. Sure. No, but that's, I mean, high school to me is like, you know, yeah, you're finding out who you are, you know, what's my purpose, and right, you're just like.
I wish I thought about that stuff in high school. Unfortunately for myself, I didn't think about those things until like after college.
Do you feel like you weren't introspective at all in high school?
Yeah, probably not that much. It's like because you had a goal. The goal is to graduate. And whatever happened throughout that, I was just playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, I'm just playing World of Warcraft. I'm watching Sports Center on repeat. I'm watching sports. It wasn't like, what is my purpose here? What am I doing? Like, what is anyone doing? Does anyone know what's going on? Never asked those questions. I didn't even ask those questions until after I graduated, really. College. It was like a shock. Like, oh.
Well, it's because you just like had goals, right? Just like gotta do this, gotta do this.
Yeah, gotta graduate high school. Yeah. Okay, graduate. Yeah. Oh, gotta go to college. I felt like that was an obligation.
Right.
Like, gotta go to college. Okay, so go to college.
Right.
Then I graduated college, and it's just like, and you can do anything, and it's just like, but.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it was the
overwhelming.
Yeah, as soon as the training wheels were off, right?
Yeah.
Or the bumpers on, right?
I left the bumpers up a long time. But I was also distracted doing other things. You know, in college, we were hanging out, playing games, you know, hanging with friends. You go to class, you're all having a good time. You're happy. Sure. Everyone's happy in college. I mean, most people, I would assume, are happy.
No, I think those are like my darkest times.
College was your darkest times?
Easily. Well, in terms of mental health. Okay. Yes, in terms of mental health. Because as much insecurity as I went through in like high school, and then there's like elementary, which is like whatever. College, you know, it's like I think I had those thoughts of like, what am I doing, right? Like, so when you got into college, what did you want to do?
This is an awful answer. I don't have an answer to it. Okay. It's like, what do you want to do? It's like, I don't know. Like, I like sport. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I never thought like.
But okay, so you get into college and you're like, all right, I just got to finish this and then we'll just go with.
Well, no, my goal. So okay, I got to get to A&M. I got to graduate from A&M. Sure. That was like.
But you're not thinking about what happens after you graduate in it?
No, not really. I thought everything was going to work itself out.
And that's great.
It's foolish. It's kind of foolish.
I don't think, you know, it's maybe not foolish, but, you know, maybe it prolonged or it delayed some suffering.
Definitely delayed the suffering until mid-20s.
So for me, it was like, okay, I'm in high school, right? Early high school. I'm like, I'm going to go into the Air Force Academy. That's what my older brother did, right? I'm going to be a pilot. No, as soon as I realized like I can't take like authority, like that's when I was like, well, military's not gonna happen. And then I got into music, and I was like, I'm gonna do music. Like we got this. Like we're fine. You know, I didn't try too hard in high school because I knew I was going to a junior college, and then once I got into junior college, it's like I studied. But I think that's where it started. Was like, okay, I'm in music school, and I'm definitely not even close.
When was this? Well, I know you said was this. After high school?
Yeah, this is after high school. So right after high school, I get into music classes. Okay. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm studying. I'm going to be a music major. This is when you're like very angsty. And I was like, I'm going to move to Boston.
Yeah. I'm going to move to Boston.
Why? Oh, because Berkeley's there. Oh, you're totally going to get into Berkeley, man. Like, great.
Hey, you could have if you wanted to.
Oh, you know a few John Mayer covers. Like, you're
John Mayer.
They're going to love you at Berkeley. Right? I was like, well, not Berkeley, the New York.
Yeah.
My parents were hilarious through all of it. They're like, yeah, of course.
They were like,
no, but
I mean,
like,
they
were totally supportive.
Yeah,
no, but they were totally supportive. But they knew.
In the back, they were like, just relax.
All right, yeah. We'll see you back here.
Sure.
In a few years.
Sure.
You know. but I think getting into music school and then just realizing like, I am not even close. I'm not even close to like the middle of the pack in terms of these musicians.
Yeah.
Okay.
When did you start playing?
I started playing guitar when I was 13.
Okay.
And I had I wasn't in band. I was never in choir. So I got into college music classes not knowing the notes on the staff. Okay. Like I didn't know my treble clef. I didn't know my bass clef. Like what was I doing there? Okay. Well, I love music, but you know what? I worked really hard and, I developed a pretty decent knowledge of music, but I knew I was like, I'm so far behind going into college that all these people, they are like flourishing and growing. And again, I don't know if they really are, but that's what I saw.
That's what you saw. Yeah.
I hear them in the practice room and they're killing it. And I'm over here like getting bored and playing like the Mortal Kombat theme on the practice piano. And they're all like, what is is that Danny again? Like, what is he doing? He's a guitar player too. Why is he practicing piano? And, but I realized very quickly, I'm definitely not going to UNT to study jazz. I'm definitely not getting into Berkeley. I'm definitely not. Okay, so what am I going to do? I was pretty religious at the time. So I was like, maybe I'll be a music minister. And then I was like, no, there's not going to be a market for that anymore.
Is that why you said no to that? Just because you were like, is that like, how many doors is that going to, like, is that really?
Not very many, right? And then so now I'm feeling like, God, what am I doing? And then of course I was like, maybe I can find something in English, but I didn't think about teaching. I wanted to be a writer. So it's like, okay, I better start writing things. And now the pressure of creativity is upon you.
What a bad pressure.
Are you going to write the next American classic? Are you going to go into poetry? Is anybody going to, can you come up with an original idea and flesh it out and make it enjoyable? Are you even reading enough?
Yeah.
Like, are you reading enough?
Are you reading enough? Are you writing enough?
Yeah. Like
you want to be a writer and you don't even write that much.
I mean, like you get to the point where you're like, oh, I want to be a writer. And then you read like a 2-page preview on Google Books of like Stephen King's like 10 tips for writing. And you're like, tip 1, they're like, he's like, write every day. And the preview runs out and you're like, I guess I got to write every day.
But that's not actually a bad tip, I think, just to go with. It'd be like, you want to be a writer? Then write every day.
Then when you can't even write every day, then what are you? So, now we're a year in and it's like, okay, so I can't even write every day. Can I even, what am I doing?
What do you mean by can't write every day?
I mean, like...
Is it that you don't want to write every day?
No discipline.
No discipline.
No discipline. Okay. It's just that simple. It's like, all right, should I write today? Yeah. Will I? No.
Yeah.
And then you start something and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write a screenplay. You get to the first conversation and then you're like, this is dumb.
I suck.
This is the worst. You even title it like crappy screenplay.
Yeah.
Right, because the
amount of stuff on my computer saved as dog poop is just ridiculous.
Like, part of you like tells yourself like, I need to title it that so that way if somebody comes across it, they know that I know that it's terrible.
Yeah. Like, I didn't really try even though you did.
Yeah, like you really tried. Like you watched Tarantino the day before and you're like, I need to write dialogue as fluid as that. And then you try and then all the dialogue just sounds like you.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're not like cut out to write dialogue, I think, is when you realize everyone sounds the same.
Yeah.
Wow, that guy's just as funny as this guy. Oh, it's because I modeled it after me. I must be hilarious. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you tell yourself these things and you get inside your head. So now I'm thinking, I can't cut it as like a world-class musician. I'm not going to be a world-class writer.
So can I pause you for one second?
Yeah.
I think that is the trap in itself, is trying to go to world-class at anything. That's like setting.
But you're 20.
I know.
You're 21.
Well, I've done that when I'm in my mid. You learn to like roll it back. Roll it back. Yeah. Roll back that expectation on yourself to be world-class in anything.
Yeah, I'll see teachers who are like, wow, you talk to that teacher and like they're still in the classroom and they're killing it, but like they're giving interviews and they're talking about their theories and stuff, and you're just like, I want to be that level of teacher.
Yeah. And
then you have to evaluate like, what does their life look like? What does that make sense in my classroom? Like, do I have the same freedoms that they do? You know what I mean? It's like the constant comparison, right, is too much. But then it's also just the demands that we put on ourselves. Yeah, the world class. All right. So yeah, I knew I wasn't going to be a world class musician, not going to be a world class writer. I remember I took a year off of school. I was waiting tables, and then I moved with my older brother in California for a little bit. Went to Europe, like for a little bit, whatever. Really found myself.
I really found myself in Europe. Where did you go in Europe, by the way? I'm just curious. I didn't know you actually went to Europe.
Yeah, so we went to Munich, Heidelberg, Strasbourg, Paris, Bordeaux.
Did you go to the Eiffel Tower?
I did, yeah.
So the one thing I've seen in life that really, I'd seen it a million times in pictures, of course, but when I saw the Eiffel Tower in person, it blew me away.
Really?
The size of it, dude. And I walked up every step.
Yeah.
And I was terrified halfway up. You know?
Really?
And yeah, I'm hanging onto the side.
Are you afraid of heights in general?
Yeah, they get me. Yeah. So I'm afraid of heights, and this thing is, and then I'm running through these scenarios like if there's a terrorist attack, like they're gonna take this thing down,
Oh wow! So
I'm not thinking. Yeah, I'm not thinking lodge. I'm just like.
So you're like, if this could happen now.
This could happen, and I'm walking up these steps, and you're looking down.
Was it what? When was this?
This was when it was kind of like they were having some attack.
France was having some issues.
It wasn't completely like out of the blue, but it's
still.
not. But still.
Right.
Come on. To think, the 30 minutes I'm going to be on this thing is going to be when it goes. But the funny thing is, so I'm struggling to get up the steps. I'm scared. And then I see this little girl just like running up, playing, do, and I'm just like, I'm a bitch. Like I'm being, like all right, like come on.
Yeah.
It's like a little confidence,
Right. So
it just blew me away.
Yeah, I think when I saw the Eiffel Tower, it was like. Something like me and my brother found a way to like just bypass all lines, and I think that's what we were stoked about. So the whole time we were like, can you believe we like bypassed all these lines? But it was cool. I mean, I got some pictures. I love any high vantage point in a city as old as like Paris or like Barcelona. When we went to Barcelona, like looking at the city planning and just like the ancientness, the ancient quality of these like cities compared to America, right?
It's so different.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what I took away from it the most. And then, so, Europe was great. We spent like almost a week in Barcelona, and that was just a blast.
You mean Barcelona?
Barcelona. Yeah.
I had a dude in the old job I used to work at. He'd always say, in Barcelona. And I'm like,
did he not have a Spanish accent?
He was a white dude, and he spent time there. So he was ingrained in their culture, but it almost seemed like he made it a point to say Barcelona.
It's like when like your friend that's like moderately, minorly Italian, like has to say every, like, what's the big one? This is how not Italian I am. Like Parmesan or like
Parmesan.
It's like. Yeah.
They add that.
Why did you add that?
Yeah, I know.
But again, who am I?
I know.
Who am I?
I know.
Their whole life they could have just sounded like that. It's like, but what you think to like watching The Sopranos and you're like, what? I don't know.
I've never seen The Sopranos.
It's good.
I hear it.
It's good.
I hear it's so good.
I watched it last year for the first time. It was great.
Does it hold up in
totally.
2020?
Totally. Yeah,
wow.
totally does. It's like, The Wire is like my favorite show, right?
I know it is, and you so always tell me I gotta watch it, and I know it's on the docket. I know it's a top-rated show. Yeah. I just don't. I don't know
why. Okay.
I don't know why.
The Wire is maybe one of the hardest shows to just start. It's slow.
It's a slog.
It's slow, and you know what? The first seasons, they don't even have cell phones, man. Like in it. It's like they kind of do, but they don't. So you're watching people on payphones, and like, how are we going to get this phone tap on this payphone? And you're like, oh, these aren't real problems.
Connect.
But then the master class that is like the acting of these this cast is amazing. I mean, it's one of Idris Elba's first roles.
Yeah.
It's one Michael B. Jordan, right? Michael B. Jordan. He's like a young kid in there and kills it. He's so good. So it's good.
Give it a go.
It's totally worth it. Yeah. It's I always joke. I'm like, man, every year you don't watch The Wire, and like it's just gonna be a regret down the line.
Whoa!
It really is that good, in my opinion. Yeah. And then people told me the same thing about The Sopranos, and I gotta say, I love The Sopranos. It was great.
Nice.
It's totally worth it. Breaking Bad is the one that I'm like. It's fine. It's good.
It's fine.
I don't know. But for a lot of people, Breaking Bad is like the show where they had never felt that way about a show before. But prior to Breaking Bad, I had already like seen The Wire.
Well, I feel like a lot of casual watchers can get into Breaking Bad very easily. Yeah. But not a lot of casual. You have to like. Yeah. I don't know. It's
like when people talk about the movie Crash. Like won Best Picture. And in like 2003 or 2004, and some people love Crash, and then some people are like, they only like Crash because they've never seen a good movie before.
Oh, interesting.
Know? And you're like, yeah, is that how I am about The Wire? Like, is there something dating The Wire? And some people be like, yeah, there's like a cop show, like something blues. I can't even remember what it's called, but somebody told me that.
From the 80s, or is this
yeah,
like
I think it's like from the 80s. Okay. It was either the 80s or the 70s.
You're right. I saw that on, I know what show you're talking about because I watched a CNN like of the decade.
Yeah, I watched that too, and I loved it.
That's
wow. Yeah. Right? Do you ever get nostalgic for a decade that you did not exist in at all?
Yeah, I don't know the 70s and 80s at all, and I'm like, that looks nice.
Yeah, I think the most mad that I ever was in high school. So VH1 did the I Love the 80s, and I loved it. I was like, I love the 80s.
You're like, I'm in.
Swatches. Devo, right? It's like, how wild is that? And it's all these comedians that grew up in the 80s. And then in 2008, 2009, they come out with I Love the New Millennium. And remember, I wanted to be a rock star in high school. I was already thinking about, hey, in 10, 15 years, I'm going to be on VH1 talking about the 2000s. All right? I'm going to be the one cracking jokes about Razor scooters.
On that show.
Right? Like, that's the level of ego that I had then, and I've carried some of that over with me now.
Sure.
But
we all have it. It's all there.
But I remember VH1 came out with I Love the New Millennium. And the same comedians talking about the 80s are talking about my Razor scooters.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, Michael Ian Black didn't ride Razor scooters.
Yeah. He was buying the ones for his kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Razor scooters.
Isn't that like one of the most defining things of like the millennial generation?
Yeah, they put a smile on your face because you just felt so happy having one.
I remember giving up skateboarding. And I was for my age, I was not great, but I was okay. I could land a kickflip, I could ollie and things like that. And I gave it all up for a scooter. Gave it up.
Looking back, do you wish you would have not gave up skateboarding?
Yes.
Because how cool is skateboarding?
Well,
you know, like,
yeah, it's awesome.
And you could, if you can ride
I'd be in such good shape.
Good. Yeah,
right
you'd probably fucking skateboard it over here.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, it's like you just, you know, you look at a skateboarder and you're just like, you're so skinny.
They all are.
They are.
I've never seen I don't know if I've ever seen a fat skateboarder.
And there might be a few, but
there's probably a few out there.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
I remember.
You fall a few times, big body, you're gonna want to lose a little bit of weight when you're falling.
Well, I think that was an issue with me. I was 23, and I decided I was gonna pick up skateboarding again. And I got my dream board. Like I had some money, so I could buy exactly what I wanted.
How much does a dream board cost? I'm just curious. I have no idea.
Like $120.
Okay.
I mean, not crazy.
Yeah, that's for a dream board.
And that might be even more expensive than it should have been. I bought it at Vans.
But
I knew what I wanted. Like, I knew exactly
you wanted
what
you wanted, and you went in there and got it like an
It's
adult.
not like I forgot after like 15 years. Okay. But I remember picking up a little bit of speed and just slowing down and just saying, nope.
Oh, you just
I went down like a minor hill.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am gonna hurt myself.
Did you see the way your body was just like, oh God, like we're gonna fall and it's gonna really impact me right now?
Yeah. I'm gonna be like, I totally forgot how to fall. I'm gonna land on the pavement like fingers like,
oh,
you know what I mean? Like I knew that like whatever was gonna like, cause my luck was always pretty bad. I was always the kid that like would find myself in these moments of like, I think I'm gonna die, right? And you know. I think part of it was because of like, you know, me and my sweaty hands.
Yeah.
If I was on the monkey bars, I always felt like this is the end. I can't hold on. Look at these kids with their great grip. Not understanding.
When did you find out you had sweaty hands? Was it at the monkey bars?
No, I think I was dealing with the consequences way before I found the reality.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, like, just I honestly just thought I was just bad at the monkey bars. I was like, clearly.
Maybe I don't have the grip strength.
Yeah, well, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here.
Yeah.
Well, it's like wakeboarding. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong when I try to wakeboard. Even all my friends too. They're like, it's not the hands either. They're literally like, what? I don't know. You're literally doing everything right, but I can't.
Wakeboarding. What is it?
Oh, it's like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've heard of it.
Wakeboarding.
I know. I've heard it. It sounds cool. Surfing plus.
No.
It's not. Is wakeboarding's in the water, right?
Yeah, it's in the water. Yeah. So all you're doing is you're being pulled by a boat and you're on a board.
Oh,
and that's it.
Okay. I know wakeboarding. All right.
Yeah, but you know, like I truly don't know what I'm doing wrong. But like the monkey bars, I was like, what am I doing? Like I was like, maybe my grip. I was like, maybe like, and I didn't realize that my hands were just sweaty.
Super sweaty hands.
And so like
that's the death of monkey bars right there with sweaty hands.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Did you avoid the monkey bars at all costs?
I was just like, well, I can't do those, so I won't. That's all that is. Yeah. And it isn't until like high school that I can Google things where I'm just like, I think what it was, this is so dumb, but those like black tables that you have in science class?
Yes.
It's like a stone.
Did everyone have those? I guess that's a science.
I bet a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I remember,
we did have those.
Like sweat like leaves a handprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like doing that to a table, and it was just like, and a kid was like, what? What is that? Why are you so nervous? I'm like, I'm not nervous. And they're like, yeah, you are. Your hands are like, you're over here like making puddles, bro. I was like, is that?
But you were like, I always make puddles. Like,
yeah,
you don't make puddles?
Like, yeah, like what? I don't know. That's how it goes, right? And I remember Googling, and I was like, sweaty hands. And then Google was like, you mean hyperhidrosis? And I was like,
this whole time.
What? Like, I was just like, I just thought people didn't like me when I shook their hand.
Yeah. You always had clammy wits.
Always.
Sweaty.
Yeah. Even when I interviewed for my teaching position, I gave them a fist bump. I was like, listen, you don't want to be part of this.
Did you let them know because of the sweaty? Or you
actually. Well, I mean, why not, right?
I think you got to let them know, because if you didn't let them know, they'd be like, why didn't he shake my hand?
Why did you give me a fist bump?
Why did you give me a fist bump?
We thought that went well.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I don't know, you got to own it, though.
You have it.
It's not like I was like, oh, my hands are really sweaty, so like, nah. Right?
You didn't make it awkward.
No, I'm just like, hey, yeah, my hands get really sweaty.
I got sweaty hands. I'm sorry. Let's fist bump. It's better for you.
And then you might laugh about it, right?
Of course you laugh about it. A little self-deprecation.
Right?
Hey.
Yeah. I mean, now it's a thing. Like, people at school, they know I got sweaty hands. No big deal. Yeah. And now, I take medicine for it.
Sure.
It doesn't fix it permanently. But
sure.
It helps.
I think owning it is with any insecurity you think you have or why you're doing something is so important. Just, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Act like you belong.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and I don't think you learn that until you get older. It's like maybe the younger kids, they kind of understand that subject now because obviously the internet, and they can look it up. And,
right.
But when we were in high school, I never would have thought of like, oh, turn the thing that you don't like into like a positive almost. Yeah. Like being open about that thing and like it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I think they do that actually, but that's why you see so many jokes about like social anxiety.
Sure.
And like really depressing
memes. Yes.
And people are like,
well, we kind of love
I want to die too. And you're like,
millennials kind of love that too.
Yeah, I think to an extent. Yeah. And then, but going back to like just kids, they just deal with everything. So, when all their humor has to deal with social anxiety and like, everybody thinks that they have like, a mental illness. And I'm not saying that, people who think that don't, but the humor is built around it, and again,
we're all
in
tough.
On it. It's hard.
Yeah. Life is hard.
Yeah,
life is not easy.
Well, because sometimes you like those jokes about depression. You're like, yeah, I've been there.
Sure.
And then some kids are like, yeah, I live that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, and it's like, it's like the sad clown.
Sure.
You're just like, man, like too real. Again, it's why I think it's important to like. One of the things I do is really just tell kids like, listen, you own your actions. Outcomes are based on what you put into it. And it goes back to like that existential education kind of idea, which is like a buzzword.
Which I think you should give the definition of existential education, because it sounds cool, but I had really no idea what that was.
And so like, people are going to vary a little bit on how they describe it, but like the idea, like, I think you have to start with like, what's the idea of existentialism? Because it's a scary word to begin with. And I know we've had like a long discussion about it, but, just for everyone else.
Sure.
When you talk about existentialism, you really are just talking about like the study of the self, right? Why do you exist? Like, what's the point of existence and things like that. And so you can literally come up with that definition on your own. And it might be that, the idea is that you create the meaning for yourself, right? The point of existence is whatever you deem it to be. And that could involve religion, that could involve, no religion, that could involve, like, I'm going to be a good person, and my existence is going to be based around the actions that I do. Some people might say, like, I want a family, and I want to do everything I can to make sure that my family's taken care of. Okay, you have literally given yourself the meaning of life, right? Because that's the whole idea, is, like, what's the meaning of life? Well, existentialism is just, like, the idea that you can make that, but it's also the idea of, like, well, is there a purpose? Is there a meaning? Right? Because some people might say there is no meaning. Okay. Yeah. And that's more absurdism. But then when we talk about existential education, it's this idea of like, hey, actions lead to consequences, and hopefully good actions will lead to good consequences.
What's the other way of teaching? Because to me,
right.
that makes that's it.
Yeah.
Because why would you not say your actions
Sure.
lead to consequences and you can take control of your destiny and choose which path you take?
Yeah.
The other way is what? Leave it up to the adults in the room.
Yeah, and so
hey, look how well that's going for
so
us in this world.
That's why I don't like say like, you know, that's like the main, you know, you can say that's the main pillar of your teaching philosophy, but you know, everyone teaches that good things lead to good things, hopefully,
Sure.
and bad things lead to bad things.
Sure.
But I think the idea of existentialist education in my book is I want to build that capacity in the student to say like, hey, you have the ability to choose where your life goes, what your actions lead to, right? And I tell them that they have the power. Okay. And so, because if you look at something like a postmodern approach, right, which is so broad, but a postmodern approach might focus on saying, hey, there's always power, but you might not have the power, right? It's understanding power struggle, whether it's class, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's, you know, socioeconomic status, whether it's regional location, right? The idea is always like, these people have power, these people don't, when you compare them, right? I think that can be really stressful to kids if you tell them, you know, like, to me, I want to just say you have power because you're going to give yourself power and I'm going to build you up. It's not discrediting that there's, it's not discrediting that like there aren't power struggles and power dynamics. It's just saying like, I would rather build up the power and the capacity in the student to say like, you choose your meaning, you choose your path, you got this. Here's everything you need to do.
Well, they're going to figure out that other stuff on their own, and then they
and I think you should prepare them for that.
Yeah.
But maybe not dwell on it.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe, and that's always tough to say. Like, why wouldn't you? Okay, well, Danny, why wouldn't you dwell on power? If you're going to teach these kids to, you know, change the balance of power and make things more, you know, equitable, then why wouldn't you focus on power? Okay, well, what you don't want to do is just say, hey, this is the power struggle, and just keep saying this is the power struggle, and look at how long, like, this inequality has been there. Okay, we should always be studying inequality, right? But then I think the way you fight that inequality is to build capacity, to build power within, right? You look at it and say, okay, it's not going to stay this way.
Yeah.
Let's make it to where the postmodern idea that there's always one person with power and one that will have less power, let's fight that. Acknowledge it, but fight it. Because that's how you enact change, right? Think about the angst that millennials, Gen X, and Gen Zers have, right? We have this like, man, look at all this inequality in the world. Look at, you know, what we see as like this hate, and like, has anything changed? I thought it changed when I was in high school. You know, we learned about like the civil rights movement. We learned about women's suffrage. We learned about like racism is bad. And we're told that like, hey, things are better. You're in the perfect world. And man, what a shock it's been in the last couple weeks, right?
Every week it's a new shock.
Yeah, but you know, if you're in your late 20s, well, the past, you know, couple years has been like a big wake-up call to like, what am I doing? And you do more introspection, like, have I just been like talking the talk and not walking the walk? Have I even considered any of this? Like, because I can say, like, last year I could say like, oh yeah, don't focus on power, like don't obsess over it, because you can build capacity, and if it was always like, if there's inequality, we can squash it with capacity and power. Okay, but now we know, no, there is inequality. There is a power struggle, right? So,
well, it seems like what you're trying to do in high school is take these kids and build the foundation. So then once they have a solid foundation of belief in themselves, they're starting with themselves to change the world instead of starting outside of themselves to change the world. Once you start with that foundation, then when you send them off out there, they have a solid base. Then they can build the house on top of it. They're going to realize that there's going to be issues they're going to deal with, and the obstacles they're going to overcome. But if you have that solid foundation of who they are as a person, the core being, and it's just like the Matrix. You got to believe. Neo had to believe in himself if he wanted to be the one.
Sure.
I know it's silly.
Yeah,
it's kind of silly.
But that's what it is, right?
But that's what it is.
Well, it's like, you know that this is possible, so you have the power to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that's really important in education right now is like lifting up student voices. Building plurality, which is, you know, just this idea that like it's not one group, it's all groups together, like plurality.
And then finding a consensus among that group.
Maybe not even a consensus, but just saying like, hey, we can all cohabitate, like, and it doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't even have to be like, oh, hey, look at all these groups, let's cohabitate. It's more like, hey, look at all these groups. And then it becomes, look at us.
Yeah, look at us and look how different we all are. Yeah.
And not even that, like, just look at us.
Well, I know.
Right?
Yeah,
you know, and so, you know, you stop. I mean, I don't think we're going to reach a point anytime soon where we have, like, just straight up, like, color blindness or culture blindness, you know. But it's more just, like, looking at the strengths we have together as opposed to what we have apart. Right?
Sure.
And it's one of the reasons why America is so complex, because we do not have a homogenized culture. We don't have a homogenized religion. We don't have, you know, and I'm not saying that there are a whole bunch of countries that are that way, but man, America is really a melting pot, and it needs to continue to be a melting pot. But you know what? We really do need it to, like, start melting, right?
Start blending.
It still feels like there's individual, like if it's like a fondue, and you're adding different cheeses. Let's say every culture is like, it's like it's still clumpy. It's still clumpy.
We gotta get the spoon. We need the spoon.
All right. It needs to be like this is our mixed cheese.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when you have a bite of the cheese, you get a little bite of everything.
Yeah, you get the best of everything.
Everything all together.
Right? Because that's what it should be, is like the best of everything. So. But that's really hard. Like, man, the hardest thing that I think a lot of teachers are gonna, you know, the biggest task that we have in front of us is not just like dealing with COVID and all that stuff, which, you know, but how do we take the events of the past month, right, past couple months, and address it, and how do we get through this and work through this and continue the conversation, continue the discussion, continue the work, you know, while also, again, as teachers, working within, I don't want to call them confines, but like working within what's appropriate as a teacher, right? I'm not going to tell students like, hey, vote this way, believe this. I can say, hey, look at the data, look at the facts, like look at, you know, and again, my facts might be totally biased, right? I teach bias by selection and omission, right? Which is the concept of, okay, simply not telling all of the story is showing you bias right there. And how would they know what's missing from the story? Well, you got to compare sources. Okay, but how many times are teachers presenting information to students and then the students going like, well, I want to hear what this teacher has to say down the hall?
They don't like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not going to do that.
It's not going to happen.
Right? I might have very differing opinions from another teacher, and I might present information in one way and they might not present it that way at all. That's really tough to reconcile with, like asking myself like, oh, man, how much of my bias is going into
what am I downloading onto them, which I don't even realize is malware?
Sure.
You know, because we all have you know, you looked at parents passing down to kids.
Yeah.
What am I putting into them that I don't even realize I'm putting into them, and I'm not trying to?
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. You're human.
Well, because it's easy for me to recognize, like when a student says something, I'm like, yeah, your parents are talking right now. You're just the medium.
How often do you see that? Would you say it's fairly
I think a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot, and not just like and that's not like a right or left thing, right? Because I think a lot of teachers will hear like a student have like a really conservative or like far right idea, and they'll be like, oh, that's not them, that's their parents. But then maybe if it's a far left idea, they're like, oh wow, like the student is like so,
that student's so progressive,
right? But okay, chances are their parents are probably pretty progressive too. So you know, really, you actually don't find out what these kids really think until you put them in those situations of like group discussion and you challenge their ideas. One of the things that we do in my class is like I kind of have this like set of guidelines where I'm like, okay, be open to new ideas. It doesn't mean you have to adopt them, but you got to be open to them.
That
right?
can everyone. That's so important to everything now. That's not even these kids. These kids are learning lessons that they should take throughout all of their life. Not even in that confines of high school. Yeah. It's like that is a life lesson.
Right.
Go on.
So
sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, but I just think that's so important.
Yeah, and I think an English class is a really good place to enforce those ideas, right? So yeah, I say like be very open to new ideas. Again, you don't adopt them immediately, right? It's not like you just hear something and go like, yep, that's what I believe. Okay, but you're open to it. You're listening and you're hearing it, okay? Which, you know, again, can be controversial because you could say like, oh, well, should they hear this terrible thing that society has all agreed that, right? We can get into that. But let's say like, all right, just be open to new ideas, okay? Yeah. Be able to effectively and charitably, like keyword charitably, challenge those ideas.
With your own beliefs?
Well, not even necessarily with your own beliefs, but like, because I could have information that I don't even have an opinion on. It's just new information.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Right, but am I able to challenge it, see if it holds up, and do it in a charitable way? And what do I mean by that, charitable? Well, you're not attacking. You're not assuming intent until intent is like made itself clear, right? Okay, so you're able to be open, challenge, and then defend. Okay, what does it mean? Defend your own ideas. Okay, believe in the ideas that you have, but if you feel like you can't defend them, like really, if you don't have the information to defend those ideas, then maybe you need to consider that your ideas are either partially wrong, completely wrong, maybe it needs a modification.
Sure.
And if you do those three things on top of, you end up being, way better acclimated towards societal discourse. You end up being a lot more informed, hopefully, right? Because you again, you've opened yourself up. You're challenging the information that's coming your way. And challenging could be looking up sources, looking up varying opinions, having a person explain an idea to you, and then defending, right? Like, if climate change is like the thing that you're focused on, okay, are you following those three things? Let's say I am a climate change denier, okay? All right, so am I first and foremost being open to the idea that climate change exists? That's an important question. Okay, let's say I am open to it. Let's say, specifically, carbon emissions from cars are causing this. Okay, that's the statement. Can I challenge it? Okay, what is it about those carbon emissions? What's the time period?
Yeah.
Okay, who's saying this? All right, can I look at the data? All right, that's a lot of work. That is so much work, and that's what we try to like build in the students. Let's say now I've reached the idea of like, can I defend like that there is no climate change? Can I present data?
Yeah, what argument can I give that will follow
exactly.
these credentials in a sense?
Right.
Or criteria?
Yeah. And it works the other way too, right? Oh, the world's going to end in 10 years because of climate. All right, that's my idea. Am I open to the idea that maybe it's not? Yeah. What's the data? Can I defend that 10-year time period?
I think so many people, that first one, am I open to there being the other side, is like, I don't think people get past that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you know what I mean? Sometimes we're so rigid in our ways that, no, I don't believe that. And it's just like, being open just seems to solve. That's so key.
Well, and it doesn't even solve. That's the problem.
Well, it doesn't solve. No, it just gives you the opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you don't even open the door for the opportunity.
Because we all know those people that are like open to everything.
Yeah, and you don't want to be.
And they're like, I believe in that. I believe in that. I believe in that. I believe in that. Right. And so I think they're all three super challenging. They're all three, I think, the hardest thing you can do. Okay. Like, there are easy things to defend. This is a phone.
I don't know, man. Is that a phone or is it a supercomputer?
Oh. Am I even open to that idea? Right? Okay. Right? You can take it to an extreme. Sure. And students hate when teachers do that. Yeah. Right? Like when I teach bias and I teach, they're referred to in our curriculum as slanters, but it's just slanted and biased language. Like, it's not, I tell them, I'm like, I'm not reading a newspaper and going like, that's hyperbole, that's bias through selection and omission. That's a really good example of, a truth surrogate. Oh, studies show. Like, I'm not reading it that way, but it takes practice. And you can read an article and at the end you can say, well, okay, that was an interesting article. I wish they would have actually named their source, right? We were looking at like, Dr. Disrespect and how he's banned from Twitch. Okay. And someone's like, I got a good source that says, like,
I got a guy.
Oh, I can't. Sure. Maybe. I even was reading a Forbes article where it's like this one person, I don't even know who they were, predicted that it was about this. And they've been like key phrase, mostly correct about their.
In the past?
Yeah. In the past. I'm like, okay, that opens the door for it to be wrong. So am I going to,
Well, I think that goes with how culture is, where it's like we're rushing to always be first because we have so much information and so much data coming in that it's just like who's first wins sometimes. Yeah. Who's first can get pop, and that's the story that gets run. Sure. When actually it has
the desire to go viral.
Sure. Right? Yeah, which I think that could have a whole.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh, there's danger to that.
Yeah, so much danger to that. Well, because it's not accurate.
Yeah, well,
you know, like that guy saying, "Oh, he got kicked off Twitch because of XYZ."
Sure.
If that's not accurate, they start running that story.
Yeah.
But then most people will see that description, the first one, and then go, "Oh, that's why," and not do the research themselves, which I think is what's dangerous about
and
that.
how many times have you read a headline and you're like, "All right, I got the story."
All day.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
And then you dig in and you're like, that wasn't even.
Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many times? Like, I think the like late shows are really bad about that. Like, if you want to watch like a Stephen Colbert clip, and it's like Mike Judge talks about how King of the Hill came from an emotional experience in his childhood, and they keep talking. They're like, so this is all sort like 8 minutes of not that, and then 20 seconds of that.
Yeah.
Man, okay. So
but they put that as the headline,
Yeah.
so you read that and you take that,
Yeah,
but then there's so
sure.
much more. Well, it's just
Yeah.
pulling things out of context,
right? I mean, we
That's,
see that all the time
sure.
with news. It's like Donald Trump, blah blah blah. Like, oh, how could he? And then you read it and you're like,
he didn't really go there,
okay,
whatever. Yeah.
And then Nancy Pelosi, blah blah blah. And then you read it and you're like, okay.
But then sometimes you read it and you're like, oh shit, that really did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no. I mean, it's
but yeah, there's
and you want your journalist, you want your journalism to be sincere, but that's not what sells. And so
clickbait.
Yeah, it's clickbait, right? It's so funny. There's always like a kid who's like, why isn't there just a news source that just gives you just the facts? And I want to tell them, okay, would you click on that? Really? Like, would you click on that if it was just, here's what happened in Congress today as of
and it was
September
just the
19th,
driest.
and it's like, so-and-so attended, so-and-so voted yes, so-and-so, voted no. And it's like, okay, yeah, that kind of exists. If you ever watch C-SPAN.
They're out there, yeah.
Yeah, C-SPAN, like, you can watch, like, a House committee, and you're just like...
It's rough.
Yeah, it's just
rough.
like, man, okay, well, I'm not a politician, so...
You just want the highlights.
Yeah, you want the highlights.
But then that is leading you up to falling to that...
Slanted language. Like, New York Times could say, in a disastrous decision. Okay, they've already told you how to feel about it. They've already told you how to feel about it.
I feel like they say that all the time.
All the time.
Like that's...
Wall Street Journal, right? Breitbart, right?
Ooh.
Talk
about slanted.
In an effort to remove your rights.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of suggesting that things are going to change, they're framing it in terms of your rights are going to be removed, right? I mean, how many varying opinions have you heard about masks, right?
So much.
Right?
So many.
Oh, it doesn't work. It does work. You should be. There was that tweet that somebody posted. I think it was like yesterday, where they said they shouldn't have said that wearing a mask will help other people out.
Oh, what?
Well, because it was a joke.
Because we're so egocentric that we're like, I want it to help me.
Yeah, exactly. I think she was like,
we're both pro-mask, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, we're very confident in our abilities to have distanced before seeing each other.
Yeah.
We're not. I mean, but I still feel weird even going out and wearing a mask and like, I don't know, like when I go to the store and I see people without a mask, I just think about like, how are they feeling right now? Do they feel judged?
I think
do
they
feel empowered? Do they feel like enlightened? Because like, you want to assume they're feeling judged.
Well, I'm judging them.
Sure.
I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I see someone not wearing a mask and I'm like, why? Like, why? Yeah. Especially when you look at, you're going to the grocery store and 90 to 95% of people wearing masks. Then you see the 5% and you're just like...
And it depends on where you're shopping too.
Oh, sure. And the state. I mean, the store, the state, everything.
Yeah. Well, because me and Felicia, we went to a Walmart in East Texas recently, and it was like, what the...
No masks?
Yeah, people are like looking at us wearing a mask, and we're like, oh... Okay.
Oh, like y'all were the weirdos?
Yeah, so...
It's a weird thing. It's weird. The reason I wear it is because it's for others. I think that makes sense, and that it totally follows every little checkpoint. Okay, you're wearing one. It covers it covers the droplets coming out of your mouth. They wear one. It covers the droplets. The chance of your droplets getting into their mouth. That makes sense. Yeah. And that's how this thing spreads. Supposedly, not doctors. Right. That's what I've heard. I know. It spreads through droplets.
Do you ever do you ever wonder what you're an expert in?
Nothing.
Right? The concept that everybody's an expert. Like, what would you feel like you were an expert in?
Oh my gosh, what am I an expert in? An expert is such a tough an expert. That's like should get paid to.
Yeah, what are you an expert in?
So I've been following Apple fairly closely and I know that's goofy.
Yeah, no.
Since 2012,
sure.
I've literally checked Mac Rumors.
Man, that was what was on your computer, like
Mac Rumors, 9 to 5 Mac, Apple Insider, Reddit Apple subreddit. For some reason, that conglomerate of a corporation has got their little fingers wrapped around me. And you know what it is?
What?
And I'm going to talk about this right now because I know how you feel on the subject of tech.
Yeah.
It's the 2012 Retina MacBook Pro 15-inch that is powering this podcast from 2012.
How funny is it going to be when we look back and like nothing worked?
Don't say that. Yeah, it just shit the bed. It can't handle this. What was I thinking?
It's like spoke too soon.
I know. Like, and then I'm getting Windows XPS 15. Yeah. I used to be an expert on World of Warcraft back in high school.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder like what have you wasted too much brain power on?
Can we not? That path is.
If you had to guess, like, what's the most time you spent on something that's not helping your life right now?
Right now?
Well, just not
or
even
just
improving.
Throughout?
And I'm not talking about like because you could have played World of Warcraft and been like, I learned these lessons, right? And that's made me who I am today.
Yeah.
What's the thing though that you spent too much time on that has no bearing on your life at all?
That hasn't benefited me one bit.
Yeah. Or if anything, like it just taught you like, I quit that thing. But like, I'm talking about like, what's the least impactful thing that you devoted time to?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it. I mean, we were talking. I think it is World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft.
Because when I look back at my high school years, and I had a lot of fun playing World of Warcraft. I love World of Warcraft Classic. Let me just throw that out.
Sure.
And Burning Crusade.
Okay.
And
I played none of it. I never played it.
They're so good.
I never played it.
God, they're so good.
Sure.
No game is like it's like no game touches World of Warcraft because it's so different than any game that's out there right now, or that's ever been, I think. And it really set
but did you learn some socialization
skills?
Sure.
I learned socialization skills, and I kind of learned to love my nerdy side a little bit more and just accept.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? But looking back at my high school years, I really could have probably dated more. I could have gone to more. I didn't go to parties.
Sure.
I was in Orgrimmar.
Yeah.
Raiding up.
You were in Orgrimmar? Is that a place?
Orgrimmar's the main capital of the Horde.
And they're like the orcs, right?
Orcs, trolls, Tauren, undead, and Blood Elves if you had the Burning Crusade. Yes. Why?
I'm sorry.
I'm an expert. No, it's just like looking like, and I came to accept it. And I love. Look,
I lead the esports club. Okay,
I know you do, and
school,
yeah.
Okay?
So
it's
you're
like,
not.
I'm not laughing at.
You're the jock in this. No, you're not. I know we're both dorks. How
crazy is that going to be? Like, I'm on the League of Legends team, and you play Smash Bros. Like,
nerds looking down on
walking down the hall with like a patch, like Varsity League.
Do they have those?
No,
that's coming.
I don't know. You can come up.
It's
with that.
coming.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're. I'm actually, and the reason I'm kind of going down that path is because you opened it up, and I was like, why isn't that not a thing?
Yeah.
Like if I know for your kids, you have an esports leagues y'all are starting.
Yeah.
Why would you not have like Letterman jackets for the league team
right now?
I can understand.
The answer is no, but honestly, right now the answer isn't even like, will the school provide them or anything? Right now, it's so new that a lot of the kids don't know how they should feel about the club. Like they like being in it.
Of course
they like the community when they're there, and they might wear a shirt, but like, okay, I'll put this like in a little bit more personal thing. Like a Letterman jacket at Allen, because I went to Allen High School as well. They opened the door for students that scored high on the tax test to get an academic Letterman jacket, and I think they still do.
Okay.
And I remember getting one.
My parents were like,
my parents were like, you have the opportunity to get a Letterman jacket. You should get one. And then I never wore it.
Oh. Well,
I knew.
What are you going to say? Yeah.
Because I knew, right? So I think until esports feels maybe a little bit more established, they might not have that desire to like really flaunt
show
it.
off. Hey.
They don't want to be like, I'm an athlete, until it's like a little bit more, I guess, socially accepted. Like, I know that some of the kids on the League of Legends team were like, I don't really need a lot of notoriety. I don't want to do an interview with the school.
They're like, I just like to play
I just want to play. And you know what? That's great. Yeah. There's a lot of football players that are like that too, by the way. There's a lot of football players who are like, I didn't really play in the games. I was technically on varsity. I'm a senior, but I didn't play a whole lot of games. I was on the bench. And they feel weird wearing the jacket, or they feel weird like wearing a state championship ring if they get it. We all have that, where it's like, did I earn this? Did I deserve this? Am I really one of those people? You get that imposter syndrome.
It was on the tip of my tongue, and I was waiting. Right. But imposter syndrome is the term.
So I think right now, like the thing keeping like the I'm on the esports team is, I think that like concept of just the you're really thinking about like, is that something that I can do that to?
Sure.
And I would love that to be the case.
It's coming.
Where someone's like, hey, are you ready for the game? Like a student to just be like, can't wait for the game tonight.
Dude, pep rallies and the esport teams are there. And they're sitting alongside the football.
But it's a fine line because like, I can't say, oh, you know what, next year, let's have a pep rally and let's bring out the League of Legends team.
No, you can't.
They're not ready. I'm not ready. The school's not ready. Look, we went to state.
Yeah.
We went to state in League of Legends, and still, like, I know the kids would be uncomfortable. I know the students in the stands would be like, "What is this?" So we need to do a good job of like promoting it and normalizing it.
I don't think you can force that either. I think it's got to like naturally kind of, it's going to, and it might take 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 years before this thing is kind of in its
hopefully more not 15 years, but yeah.
Okay, so 5 to 10 years when it's kind of becoming more mature of a sense of what it is.
You know what it needs is, it just needs more and more schools giving scholarships and things like that, because
colleges?
I'm contacted about once every week or so from a college that I've never heard of that's building an esports program, and they're offering scholarships to kids, and I'll pass that information along to the kids. But some of them aren't going to like this weird like suburb college in like Western Indiana
just because they got a scholarship for gaming.
It just doesn't, they're like no. Okay, UTD has one, but they're not doing scholarships yet. It's not until like UTD, UNT,
what could you say? Any of the major, any of the D1 football schools, when you could say, okay,
they got a D1 esports program.
Sure. That's
and you know what? Oh, hey, the people who were in that, the people who played for Alabama's esports team, or League of Legends team, they're now on Cloud9 or Liquid or like these esports teams that are, making millions of dollars. Until we see that path, I think there's still going to be some stigma. I think because there's no doubt that we're on our way there.
100%.
Absolutely. And I tell my kids all the time, you guys are trailblazers, you guys are pathfinders.
They are.
You're leading the way. The things you do now are going to affect the kids that come after you. And I want you to put yourself in that situation. Just understand that you might not be the one who's
getting the scholarship,
but like, how great is it going to feel to know like you were in the first year or the second year of the Allen Esports program?
How do they take that?
Man, so well.
I would hope they would, because you are literally, how rare of a time when to do anything for the first time nowadays is tough, because everything's been done. We've been around a while. Humans have. So to be on the ground floor of this like huge thing that's gonna be massive, and it already is massive, but even on a public scale,
they've taken that responsibility in stride. They're constantly like, I can do this, I can do this, I can prepare this. I mean, like, take the Super Smash Bros. Like program that we have within the esports program, and we've got 3 captains, and those 3 captains, they get like a 60-person tournament together where they send me names because we check grades, right? So like they send me the list of people that have signed up, I run the grade check, and then we get the bracket going to see, I say like, all right, here's our students that are eligible, and they create the bracket and they set up the rooms. They'll say like, all right, this person, you guys are in room 5, and they bring the kids together. They bring their switches and equipment. They have like a log of this person brought this person brought this. I did not have to say how to do it.
You're not micromanaging. You're just saying
they did
run.
They did.
Hey, I've given you power.
Yeah,
run.
I literally go and I sit there for like 2 hours and I grade. And, I walk around and like watch some of the games and stuff, but it's theirs. Yeah. So they got it. The Overwatch team, they run practices, from home. The League of Legends teams, they got themselves organized. And they just had to pay to like get into the league. But yeah, I mean, when we structured it to where it was like officers, captains, and then club members, that worked really well. Like people, you don't have like one person talking to the president of the club saying like, hey, we really want like a Pokemon esports thing. No, it's like, hey, they kind of talk to captains or they talk amongst each other. And then it's like they delegate. It's like a republic.
How beautiful. Yeah, it's kind of beautiful.
It's a republic really that they created, a Republic of Gamers, which is a company, by the way.
Oh, I was like, TM.
Hey, yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I remember me and my little brother, we were talking with our dad about like cool business ideas, and we came up with this like new take on the internet cafe, right? Where it's like, and there it exists. It's like areas where you can rent out gaming computers. And I remember we came up with all these details, and my dad was like, what would y'all call it? And we were like, Clutch Gaming. And then I Googled Clutch Gaming, and it's like a esports, like exactly what we wanted, but in Denver.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we'd call it something else. And then my dad was like, how about we don't do that?
Yeah, let's just go back to school.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of goes on what we were talking about when off the stream, when we were just saying what the bar you set these kids at any grade, first kindergarten to seniors to anything. I mean, once you get out of school, you kind of have to set your own bar. But
you learn to set that bar based on the bars that other people set for you.
Sure. So if you're setting it high then they're going to set that bar high when they get out of school.
Well, because you'll learn about any bar. There's going to always be, no matter where you set that bar, there's always going to be the people that exceed those expectations.
Sure.
And it's crazy what you see is like if the bar was set here, like low, you're going to have the people that exceed, but maybe they exceed to this amount, like just a little bit. But you're always going to have kids that approach it. You're going to have the kids that meet it, and then you're going to have the kids that fall below. Okay, what happens if you raise the bar here? You're going to have the kids that exceed here. So, okay, look at how much more they exceeded because they were challenged. Look at the kids that would have been here, but because the bar's here, they're like up here to where exceeding was.
Yeah.
The kids that don't do anything might still not do anything, but, like it's there. So raising the bar, to an extent, look, if I was like, all right, kids, you're juniors in high school, time to write a 25-page report. They're not ready for that. They're just not. Like there's a certain extent to where that bar can be, right? It might be, hey, I need you guys to have, maybe last year it's like, I need you guys to have 3 sources. Maybe this year I'm like, hey, I need you to have 5.
Yeah.
Reasonable bar, But that should be the goal of educators, right?
Sure.
Finding the bar, testing the limits. It goes back to what we're talking about with like anti-fragility.
Yeah.
We don't want to bring them to the breaking point. We don't even want to bring them to where they're like, oh, I'm almost about to break. Yeah, it's like, no, you test them, you challenge them,
Sure.
they'll get through it.
Well, there's that quote by, I think it's Abraham Lincoln. He says something along the lines of, if you give me 6 hours to chop a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. So no matter how much time you give these kids or how much in where you set the bar at, they're gonna get to that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they're gonna wait. Yeah.
And maybe the bar is like not a requirement, but maybe the time you need to do it. Kind of like that. It's like, hey, give me 2 hours to chop down the tree.
Sure, exactly. That's the bar I'm trying to talk about. It's like, you give those kids 2 hours to complete a spine. They'll take 2 hours. You give them 1 hour, they'll knock it out in 1 hour.
Well, because if I assign them an essay and I'm like, all right, you got 2 weeks.
They're not going to start until 1 week and 5 days in. Then
right. But you learn as a teacher, like, okay, you got to create benchmarks that matter. Like, okay, the outline is a grade. Okay, well, they don't want to zero on the outline. So they do the outline, but by doing the outline, they're like really prepared for the essay.
Yeah, English class is real good at building those like benchmarks along the way.
Yeah, we've gotten better.
Yeah,
we've gotten better. I feel like it wasn't always that way, but it's been there since I've been teaching for sure, and before that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I always felt like they had those there where it's kind of like, oh, you get read this one chapter, and then it's just like, okay, so you read the one chapter, and that didn't take that long, and then we'll talk about it, and then write a little thing on it. Like you said, write the outline, okay.
Right.
And just you're kind of setting them up for success, right? That's what you want to do.
Well, and then, I think the big challenge with education and what we want to do is we always talk about like, oh, really know your students, really learn your students. That's one of the hardest things that you can do. Like, it's it's easy to learn your students and like kind of get an idea of what their interests are, but it's another thing to take that knowledge and apply it. And to try to do that with every student is just super difficult. It's super difficult. Like there's a student of mine who, this was like 2 years ago. We were working on an essay, and we were like, oh, let's give the students 10 options, like 9 or 10 options to write this essay. Like they can write about these topics, and like, wow, that's great. We've just student autonomy. Right.
Run, kids.
Yeah. There's not. Yeah. Oh man. And the topics were things like: should U.S. citizens be required to serve in the military? Should the first 2 years of college be free? Should people be able to keep exotic animals as pets? And we're like, well, this covers everything, knowing full well that there's topics that the reason we gave them topics is so that way they don't, pick things like abortion, gay rights, like those like hot button topics that we think that students are incapable of talking about,
and that could cause issues in the class dynamics.
Yeah, and it's not even that we think like they can't talk about them. It's that we are afraid like, is it worth? Like we're just trying to teach them an
It's
essay.
not. Yeah, we're trying to get them to think on their own and actually go in there and research. Yeah.
And I'm like very much on the side of like I think it is worth like letting them have those conversations, but then you run into time. Like that's the hard part about teaching is like I've got this much time to do this thing.
It's not a lot.
Can I devote a day to that conversation? No, not in the way that it's structured now. I would love to have that conversation, not to guide them in the way that they think, but I want to hear this student's view on, like, I want to hear this student's view on abortion. I want to hear this student's view on abortion. What led you to those conclusions? What led you to those conclusions? And of course there's going to be parents that say, why are they having these conversations? Why are and so there's always limitations. But I remember, so we had all these topics and we're like, this is great. And the fallacy is that if a student can't pick from those topics, that they are just lazy and they're not going to write. But that's not true. It's 10 topics. How many topics could somebody possibly write a persuasive essay about? Endless.
That there's
right?
no number on
Mac versus PC.
Oh, yeah.
Android versus iPhone.
Sure.
Right? Nintendo Switch versus Xbox.
Yeah.
All tech, right?
Yeah.
But this kid is like, I don't care about college. I don't care about the military. I don't care about exotic animals. I don't care about the age to be an adult. I don't care about this. I don't care about this. I don't care about this. Okay, so then it's like, what do you care about? And are they going to tell you that? If I'm like, Jeff, what do you care about? They know where that's going. As soon as they answer that question, they're like, this is just going to lead to work. Right? So you got to use some context clues.
And I also think it takes time to figure out what you care about.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in high school and we're talking about obviously they're still figuring out life. So it's like maybe they don't have those, us, we've gone through a little bit. What do I like? What do I really like?
Right.
What do I feel like I'm not having to push up a mountain for my, I like this thing, this subject, when it's like, no, maybe you don't. If you don't intrinsically just like are interested in that thing.
It's like, remember that age where you're like, you went from I love science to like, that's a dangerous statement.
Yeah. I think science is cool.
Yes.
But do you really love science?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so, because if I was like, I love science, then, and they're like, oh, like, you've been keeping up with like their discoveries on black holes. I'm like, let me rephrase that. I loved Interstellar. Okay. Right? So, but it's like when you ask a kid and you're like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, I don't know. And then you say like, I know you like video games, and they're like, I know where this is going. Oh, you should design video games, but that takes math and then computer science, and then
they see the trap. They see the trap.
They know, they're not dumb. They know where this is all going. So sometimes you got to use context clues. Sometimes you got to use past conversations, right? And sometimes you got to like kind of hold their hand along the way. So for one of these students, and this is just one example, he looked at all 9 or 10 of those options, and he was like, I don't care about any of this. But I know that he's really into hunting. Really into hunting. Okay. So I have to kind of help him out. And I'm like, I was like, is there a difference between hunting from a blind or hunting on foot? And he's like, yeah, obviously.
He's like, duh.
Yeah. And I'm like, which one do you normally do? And he's like, I do both. And I'm like, but are there some people who think you should only hunt on foot? He's like, well, yeah. I was
idiots. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but I'm like, could you try to defend hunting from a blind? He's like, well, yeah, like there's this, there's this, there's this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's your 3 paragraphs.
There's your
like,
paper.
You did it. And then I remember like, I think this might have been my first year teaching. I remember like going home, like calling my parents, like I solved a problem today. And they're like, wow, great job. And I was like, I'm the best.
Yeah.
I'm such a good teacher. And then the next year, like... just not even, it's like you get hit.
Well, then you're like, I know nothing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's the humbling experience of life.
Always.
Anytime you think you've got your shit together, or you're killing it, and you can be killing it, and enjoy the killing it time, but know that it's not gonna last.
Yeah, but maybe don't take it into like what I do. Yeah. Where it's like when I'm playing Mario Maker and I'm like, I'm amazing, and then I like die in the level and I'm like, I should have been focused.
Well, then you keep dying at that first little thing and you're like, I'm awful at this game.
God. Yeah, I remember like after my first year teaching, I was like, I've mastered classroom behavior. I've mastered this. I'm a differentiation machine. Like I'm so good, and it's like my second year, I'm like, this is awful. I have no idea what I'm doing.
What is it's a distribution line where it's like you think you know everything, and I don't know if you know the term for it. It's like you think you know everything, and then you think you know nothing, but then you start working your way out of that. Sure. There's a specific term. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like your confidence is so high when you really actually know nothing, because you don't know what you don't know,
well,
and then
it's almost like the opposite of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Where it's
I forget what do you know what I'm talking about though? Have you seen that before?
I don't know if I know the actual term. For some reason what keeps and I know what this term means, like the, diminishing returns, like point of diminishing returns. That's not what you're talking about, but there kind of reaches that point where, you feel like you're becoming better and better and better, and then you like plateau, right? That's like diminishing returns. But I don't know what it means to be like on top of the mountain.
Well, it's because when you first start learning from something, you're so confident, but you have no reason to be confident.
Yeah.
But then you go to this valley where you realize, I know nothing. And then you're kind of depressed and you're like, I don't know anything.
Sure.
But then you kind of have to work yourself out of that valley.
Yeah. And
you realize, and the reason it came up is because when I was looking at programming, it's like that's a real prominent thing, because when you first start, you're like, hello world. You're like, I can do anything. Yeah. And then I'm awesome.
Yeah.
And then you go down the valley and you're like, I know nothing.
I think it's like the concept of like, theory versus practice, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I know coming out of grad school for education, I was like, man, the perfect classroom is this and using this tactic and using this and doing this. And you're like, oh man, like when I teach, I'm going to be master of my craft. And then you put it into practice. And then you see, wow, that really is a perfect world scenario. Like there's times where I look at like, oh, why isn't this school succeeding? If they only did this and this and this, then they'd be fine. Yeah. I had this idea before my first year of teaching. I was like, all right, my classroom is just going to be like dark. And there's just going to be like lamps. When they walk in,
lots of lamps.
Yeah, like when they walk in, it's gonna be like silent reading time, and lights are gonna be dim. And those shoe, the shoe things that you drape over a door, and it's like your math teacher would put the calculators.
Sure.
I was like, I'm gonna buy all these little LED lamps.
Oh, and their names are gonna be on them.
Yeah, and like they're gonna go and they're gonna get their lamp and they're gonna bring it to their desk and they're gonna read, and they're gonna know that when the lights are down, that's reading time, and they're gonna know that. Deep inside, they've got this, right? And then I'm like, oh wow, and all the stress of the day, when they walk into my place, it's gonna be,
hey, that's gone. That sounds so nice.
Gone. How beautiful is that in theory?
I just want to nuzzle into that theory and like take a nap in it.
And then here's what happens. Yesterday was a fire drill. You gotta make up some time. Sorry, kids, you can't read. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like. There's
well, and they come in, they're blah blah. They come in all loud. Hey, the lights are down. Jeremy, read your book. Look, don't do that with the lamp. Like, you know what? Turn the lights on. We're done.
Oh yeah. So in theory,
everything in theory sounds great.
Right? And you just think about it. You're like, I'm the best teacher.
Yeah. How come no one's thought of this?
Yeah. They have.
Of course, and it didn't work.
Yeah, they tried it. Right, and then it's like, okay, did you try it once or did you try it multiple times? Right, these perfect world scenarios, it doesn't mean they won't work. It just means like you got to test them. You got to actually do the data. You got to and it's one of the things that they teach us in grad school. It's like all teachers need to be recorders of data. If you don't one of the concepts we learned in grad school was like, if you're not keeping at least like 4 charts, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, in my first year, I was like, I better start keeping some charts.
Who wants to keep charts?
It's like, like they were doing things like every time a student sleeps, like chart it. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You keep mental charts in your head.
You know who's the sleeper in class.
Yeah, it's why you don't like it. As soon as one kid sleeps for the first time, you're like, what are you doing? You don't do that. No. It's like if a kid's fallen asleep the last like 5 days, that's when you ask them, like you bring them out in the hall and you're like, hey, what's going on?
Sure.
Like, feeling
coming
okay?
at them with from empathy, like, hey, are you getting enough sleep at night? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you playing games all night? Let's be real here.
Yeah.
And then we need to fix this.
I always tell them like, I'm not trying to get you in trouble, so just be honest. Like, and then still there's hesitation there, right? But
we can connect with them at our age because it's like, look, I'm not really that much older than you.
I'm so worried.
Yeah, but can we bridge that gap to where when you're older you can still connect with them? I was there.
I'm not saying you can't. Like it's
I know. I know
the
what
idea
you're
that we're young, right?
Yeah, so it's easy.
Right. It's like I know what TikTok is.
Yeah. I know what TikTok is.
Well, and I mess with my kids all the time. Like I pretend like I'm like way out of touch, and they know I'm not. Like last year, one of my kids said mood. Like I was like, man, yeah, I'm like, it was like early in the year and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty tired. And they're like, mood. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, mood.
I don't know. See, I mean, I know what mood. I know it's being in a mood.
By the way,
I never
we're
heard that as
so
being
old right now with this conversation. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like I feel you.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, but like it's hilarious to me. So then I started just saying it,
mood.
And every time I was like, like one kid was like, ugh, and I was like, mood, and they're like, oh, please stop, and I'm
God, cringy.
I'm like, immediate like dad joke, like I try to just
cool.
like, yeah, well, and all like, I remember, and I mess with my kids sometimes, like my first year teaching, Supreme was like peak popularity.
And what is Supreme? What are you talking about?
Old,
dude. Am I?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess now that I'm actually connecting. Okay, probably
Supreme,
dude. Like, I don't know, how would you use that? See, I don't know.
No, it's not a saying.
I don't know.
That's the thing.
I'm not cool.
It's close.
I played World of Warcraft in high school.
Have you never seen a shirt that says Supreme on it?
Maybe.
How can you have a popular show if you don't? No, I'm kidding. But like,
oh God, here come the insecurities.
No, look, Supreme is like a clothing brand. I can barely explain it. A clothing brand, like they also create things like stickers and stuff, but it's got Supreme on it. But they only release like so much of something, so there's a rarity,
how limited,
right?
Oh Jesus,
they'll like
the
drop
Yeezy.
things.
Well, the Yeezy, it's like the. Yeah. I mean, they only releasing 100 of the new Jordans.
Well, okay, like Daniel's brother Steven, like with the shoes.
Yes.
It's kind of like concept. That, but with Supreme, it's like, oh, they're releasing this sweater at Stonebriar Mall, and you're like, okay.
How much is that sweater? Is it they charge? Oh my.
Okay. All right. Sometimes, right? And then sometimes it's like, oh, it's $100, but the resale value. But when I heard the kids talk about it, I couldn't help but be like, hey, are some of them holographic? And they're like, what? And I'm like, are some of them holographic? And they're like, do they like shine? And I was like, they're like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, okay, are you gonna, do you guys trade them back and forth? And they're like, yeah, sometimes, I do this and that, like maybe a shirt for like a set of stickers. And I was like, okay. And so like, I was just, I started referring to them as trading clothes.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And because it just felt like they were playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Definitely. Oh, did you got the holographic October edition Supreme jacket?
Yeah. One kid, he gave me, and I mean, it was very sweet, like, and I still appreciate it to this day. He was like, hey, I really appreciate, what you did, and I got you something. I was like, oh, thanks. And he gave me these stickers. It was like Scarface stickers, like 3 stickers of like the movie Scarface, but it had Supreme in the corner.
Oh, wow.
It was just pictures from the movie, but it had Supreme in the corner. He's like, those are worth a lot of money. And I was like, I don't know what to say. Like a high school kid just gave me stickers.
And that's important to him.
Yeah, no, and it is. And I was very appreciative.
Yeah. Well, it's like when a little kid comes up to you and they're like, I drew you this. And you're like, oh, I mean, in your head, you're like, well, that looks...
And then I actually looked up the price of the stickers, and he'd given me something like $45 worth of stickers. And I was like, I don't even like Scarface.
Yeah.
But like, it's like very cool. But to them, that means a lot. There's things that I think we put value in that doesn't mean
we
anything.
did the same things when they were their
God,
age.
imagine
It's
our
just
parents
different.
when Pokemon came out. We just couldn't stop.
I would just stare at the cards for hours.
I don't think any of us knew how to play the trading card game.
I didn't learn until I was a man.
Yeah.
That's true. Really?
Kind of like you just took your knowledge of like the show and the game and you were like, my Blastoise beats your Ditto.
Yeah.
And they're like, of course it does.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I use hydro pump. You didn't have to put the actual
energy cards?
energies on them. No, you're like I use hydro pump.
Yeah.
You know, you played the Game Boy game, and you got it. I got the PP.
Yeah.
I got 5 out of 5.
What a terrible I don't even know what that stands for.
No one does.
Like
HP is health points.
Yeah, health points.
That seems
power points.
Maybe, I would think it would be power.
But why? You know, it's like why?
But no one knows what PP is. But we all know what it is if you've played.
Yeah,
any
it's
Pokemon
like that's how many
game.
times you can use that move.
Of course.
You know, your favorite move. Did you ever have that favorite move where you were like, "Dang, I've used this 20 times since I've healed. Like, I'm a beast."
I just use the most powerful. You know,
always.
Hyper Blast.
Yeah.
You know, get a Dratini, get a Dragonite,
Yeah.
Hyper Blast.
The games are just not difficult at all, though. Like I played the newest one.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I hate the gyms where it's like I'm the fire gym guy, and I'm like, all right, let me get like 2 Pokemons that look like a clam.
Yeah.
And,
Or the ice cream cone.
And I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like you have a level 40 fire thing. Here's a level 30 seahorse.
Yeah.
And they're like, how did I lose? And I'm like, because you need to diversify.
Diversify, dog. You can't be straight fire. You know that.
Yeah.
You're a gym leader. Well, they never upgraded. And then, okay, so this is my thing with the new Pokemon games, is they made experience share used to be like a super hard thing to get in the old games, and it was like gold, because then you didn't have to slog through getting that one Pokemon who is level like 8.
Yeah.
And then grind them all the way up. It's like, oh, just throw an experience share. And they just give it to you now.
Yeah, they do.
You never have to change Pokemon
but
if
you
you
know
don't
what,
want
though?
to.
I think that's a good thing.
No, it's not, because they're not. You're coddling them.
I guess.
You're coddling them.
I haven't finished the game. I may never.
It doesn't matter. You could if you want. It's not hard.
Coddling of the American mind. Are millennials, stronger? Because, geez, we're not strong at all. But like, do we feel like we're stronger?
Generation is just like pussies.
Right. Do we feel better because we didn't have experience share? As Pokemon, like
I feel better now.
Yeah.
I wish I had it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And then you had to grind. Like I said, you had to take that Pokemon that you didn't ever, or he was so far low level than all the others, and you had to start back at the beginning and grind him up, and it took time.
That's why
the hard days,
right? That's why I just picked Squirtle.
You were a Squirtle
because,
man?
like you were fine on the rock gym.
Right out of the gate, you had the advantage.
No issues. I didn't have to level up Pidgey.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why Yellow was the hardest one. Because when they were like, "Hey, here's Pikachu. Good luck with the rocks."
Good luck with Brock, who's sitting, right down the road.
Yeah, and then you just had to sand attack him and just like peck out of frustration.
Oh, you can't take a Pidgey to a rock battle. You got to get the Nidoran that's to the side.
I guess so it can poison the rock. Come on, Jeff.
There you go. Hey, he was more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we need. Like, that's what the education system needs, is just like a Pokemon class where it's like, hey, take a Pikachu and try to do what you can in the rock gym.
Yeah, good luck.
Life, and we'll call it
life
skills.
Well, that is a life skill. Take this Pikachu who has no advantage versus these other guys and have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss those days. Man, nostalgia is such a powerful drug.
It is. Again, like, we have nostalgia for decades we weren't even alive in.
Mm.
Like, I watch Stranger Things and I'm like, yeah, for real.
I get you.
Yeah. Like, no, I don't. But it feels cool. It makes me feel good when people who grew up in the 80s were like, it feels like the 80s. And I'm like, right? Right? I told you.
But you kind of understand what they mean, though.
Yeah. Or, like, you show them Freaks and Geeks, and they're like, yeah, this is how it was. And you're like, I told you it was a good show. I'm waiting for, like, the Freaks and Geeks of, like, our generation.
Of the 90s? Or of, like, 2000s?
2000s, yeah. Because the 90s, like, I was watching, like, Adventures of Pete, and it's like...
Was that Nickelodeon?
Yeah, I
never branched.
don't even really remember that show. I just remember I watched it. Like Rugrats.
Sure.
And then, we're gatekeepers as well, right?
We are?
Yeah, we are.
Everyone's gatekeepers, and you're not trying... I mean, sometimes I'm trying. I mean, I'm shitting on the new Pokemon.
Yeah, right.
Shitting on the new Pokemon game. It's like, just relax, Grandpa.
Yeah. Well, my big thing was like when I realized all my students had watched the same SpongeBob episodes as me.
That you had? Oh.
I was like, whoa, because I was like, oh, you grew up with late Pokemon. You grew up with late SpongeBob, and they're like, no, I remember all the best SpongeBob.
The earlier seasons are gold.
Yeah, they're great.
I mean, the Bubble Bowl. Who doesn't? That's the pinnacle to me, SpongeBob episode.
Okay, can we?
We can go anywhere you want, baby.
This is so dumb.
No, take it.
When Super Bowl fans, like when fans on Reddit,
just recently, I knew where you're going.
Where they
I
were
didn't like how they did it.
Yeah, well, they were like, I was just like, there's no way they're devoting Super Bowl time to Sweet Victory from SpongeBob. Maroon 5 is not gonna sing Sweet Victory, right? Sweet, sweet victory, yeah, right? Like, they're not doing that in the Super Bowl. Like, and so people were like, they're going to do it. The whole internet was like...
You know whose camp I was in? That side. I was like, come on.
Well, yeah, you can be like, come on.
And I watched the halftime. I mean, Maroon 5, cool, okay, whatever, but...
Well, and I watched it being like, it'd be cool if they did, but I know they won't.
See, you set your bar at a really, probably realistic point. Yeah. Everyone else had it so high, it was like...
Yeah, and then they were all like,
well, then we're all
how could this happen? Because they had that one clip where it was like, right? And then it was like, you know, and it was like Animals or whatever by Maroon 5. Yeah. And people were like, you know, they're ruining the memory of SpongeBob because, you know, the creator had passed away.
Yeah,
and they were like, you know, he deserved better. And I was like, they don't owe him anything.
No. They don't owe us anything. No. Who are we to think that they should owe us? Dude, we're such hey, we want this and we want, and if you don't give it to us, we're going to be real upset.
It's like when I look at those petition things where it's like, sign a petition. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Even if there's 1 million signatures.
E-signatures.
Yeah. Well, it's like sign a petition to get Donald Trump out of the office. I'm like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, those are goofy.
That's not how that works. Yeah. You know, it's like if there's enough of an internet voice, it's going to happen. It's like, I guess. You know how many people wanted Half-Life 3 to come out?
And they were like, but people don't know what they want. And so they're like, you don't want Half-Life 3 because you're going to criticize it because guess where your bar's at?
Yeah.
To the moon. So guess what we're going to give you? We're going to give you Half-Life, but it's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
Is it called Alex? Did you play Half-Life, Alex?
No, I haven't played a single Half-Life.
Guilty myself, but I think that should be a path we should... I mean, do you have any interest in checking that out?
Not at all.
Really? Not even, you know, how highly acclaimed they are?
You know, I mean, like... If we try to keep up with like all the precursors to what we love now, right? Like, okay, when somebody says like, how have you not listened to every Elton John album? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, you know how much Elton John has influenced the music you listen to today? I was like, okay, how much, you know, have you listened to Miles Davis? Yeah. Have you listened to, you know,
keep going back. Who influenced Elton?
Like,
who influenced?
Oh, did you listen to Ravel? Yeah. Like, oh, who's Ravel? Oh, who's Ravel?
Dude, people who say that, you don't know. It's like there's a lot of information out there.
So, you know, if somebody's like, you know, do you know how much Half-Life has influenced games? I'm like, cool, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did because now we're here where we are. But I guarantee you, I'm not going to play that game and say it's my favorite game.
It can't be because you're not.
Because I saw the greatness that led up to it, right? So like, you know, and look, I like Elton John, everything I've heard, but I'm not about to sit through a full Elton John album.
No, well,
I'll stick to the hits, you know. And then there's artists where I listen to every song they've ever created.
You definitely do that.
On repeat. Yeah. But, you know, like, I don't need to listen to Cream.
Is that an Elton John song?
No, but
I don't even know.
Well, that's like they did Sunshine of Your Love, right?
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask anybody who's like a classic rock fan. Like, and I bet a big portion of them would be like, hey, name a couple Cream songs. And they'll be like, nah.
No, I'm not going to play your game. But if you're not coming out there and saying, like, if you were to say, I'm an Elton John fan, I'm a big fan, then it'd be like, well, okay, you got to listen to more than just, like, you know, Rocket Man.
Sure.
You better have gone through a couple of the albums a few times. No, you don't agree with that?
No.
You could say you're a fan of him with only listening to, you know, 5 or 6. I guess.
Can you be an Adam Sandler fan? A big Adam Sandler fan without liking Jack and Jill?
Without liking Jack and Jill? Yeah, I think you can.
What if you've only seen 3 Adam Sandler movies? Could you still be a big fan?
See, this is where I think there's like I said, there's like a thing. I'm a fan of Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
okay, I've seen a couple movies. Okay, cool. But if you say I'm a big fan, big really takes it to like, oh, so you've actually like, it goes back to what you're talking about. What are you an expert in? It's like, okay. So if you're saying I'm a
big fan mean like...
Well, expert's further than big fan, of course. But if you're a big fan of someone, you better have seen more than 3 Adam Sandler. I'm not even a big fan of it. Because you don't want someone that says, I'm not really a big fan of his, but like, yeah, I've seen 50 First Dates. Like, come on. You know what I mean?
All right, let me pose a question to you.
Yeah.
Can a 6-year-old be a big fan of the Philadelphia Eagles?
100%. Because, and this is, we're going to go on a whole nother thing here. Being a child and being a fan of a team is the most connected and intimate you'll ever be with that team, because when they lose, you lose.
Okay. All
and
right.
this is a core thing for me as a sports fan.
Yeah, but they didn't see the like 1970s.
They couldn't.
Like, you know what I mean?
They can't.
Like, but see, like you're adding expertise, like you're picking and choosing.
No, because they didn't have a choice.
What if you're a big Adam Sandler
they
fan,
didn't
but
have
you
a
only
choice.
watched his Saturday Night Live specials, like his Saturday Night Live performances?
You were a big Adam Sandler fan, but you only watched the SNL specials?
Like the SNL skits he was in. Could you be a big Adam Sandler fan?
And never saw any of his movies?
You never saw any
of
his movies?
No.
But what if, like, those
you have a choice.
Like, you rewatch those specials all the time, or those skits all the time.
Why would you not peek a few of his movies?
Maybe you never got around to it.
Dude, go watch some of his movies.
Okay, see, but, like...
You have a choice. With the 6-year-old thing with the kid, it's like he didn't have a choice. He wasn't around the 70s. Of course he never saw the Red Wings. And when you're a kid, he's learning. He's learning. It's okay. Yeah. As a sports fan, I connect with that kid. When you have a choice and you say I'm a big fan of something, you should, if you're really a big fan of that guy, see what else is out there.
I guess, like, okay, so, like, years ago, I went to a Yes concert, right?
Yes.
No. Right? And, like, Yes, if you've seen, that meme where it's like, right, where it's like to be continued? Then you've heard Yes, okay, right?
Okay. I'm sure I have, yeah.
So, me and my good friend Matt and my mom, we went to a Yes concert, and they played, like, 2 albums, like, Close to the Edge and Roundabout, and there were a lot of people there who... They were like, I'm just at a Yes show.
I'm here for the hits.
Yeah, but then then on the encore, that's when they played the hits, and they were like,
I got it.
Right? Like, when you look at their faces, they're big Yes fans, but they didn't.
They're fake big Yes fans. They're fans.
Gatekeeper.
I'm a gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper.
I'm a gatekeeper.
You're
whatever.
A gatekeeper.
They're fans. They're fans, and they're having a good time, and they love the song.
Yeah.
But they haven't invested the time that it takes to be a big fan. They're phony big fans. You're not really a big fan. You like the hits.
Can you be a big fan of Star Wars and only like the original trilogy?
No, because you've seen the others. Now you can only like, you know what I mean? I know all the Star Wars, but yeah, I mean, I would say when you're a big fan, your view on that topic means so much, whether you like or dislike something, because you actually do know. If you were like, I love Star Wars, I've only seen the original 3, I love them, but you never saw anything else, it's like, well, then how do you know you love them? You can love them because they're great movies, but like you can't compare them to the other Star Wars movies. So you can't say I like Star Wars. You gotta. I'm a gatekeeper.
Yeah, you're a gatekeeper.
I'm a gatekeeper, but when it comes to that, that's just how I feel about it. It's like if you're a big fan and you have a choice, you should invest some time and become a real big fan.
Can you be a big fan of Bob Ross and never have painted, like, one of his paintings along with him?
Ooh, this is an interesting one. Can you be a big fan of Bob Ross and you've never painted, but you just watched him a whole lot?
Because his painting, like his show's kind of designed for you to kind of follow along.
Sure. I think you can.
Okay.
I'm not saying this wouldn't hold up in the scientific theory of it has holes in it.
Yeah.
But I do think if you like, I'm a big fan of Bob Ross and you never painted, but you watched all of them and you know about him, and maybe you know about the struggles he's gone through, and you know how his wife died or something, and that's kind of what has made him who he is. You're a big fan of Bob Ross.
All right.
So when
I'm a big fan of the Beatles.
Yeah.
All right, but there's a lot of Beatles gatekeepers out there.
Oh, I'm sure
where they're like, what's your favorite album? I could be like, I don't know, maybe Revolver, but I really only like 2 or 3. You only like 2 or 3 tracks from Revolver? Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big fan of Beatles hits, and they're like, oh, you only like the hits, but you don't listen to, what's the one song where it's like, lovely Rita Mita maid,
I'm not. Yeah.
Okay, it's a fun song. It's a fun song.
But you know it.
That.
You know it, and have you heard it?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you have to be a fan. You can be a big fan of something and not like everything they do. I think that is what being a big fan is.
We just talked about
the
Star Wars thing.
What? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you said, but you have to partake in all of it.
You got to partake in it, and then you can say like, but your viewpoint on that subject means more.
What if I never watched any of the Beatles movies?
Fuck the movies. I'm sorry. What? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's how I.
It's whether you view everything in entirety, or do you think that there's like if a catalog is like 100%, can you partake in 70% and still be a big fan?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But you just got to cross this barrier where it's like the most minimal effort.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a big fan, you got to cross the minimal effort barrier where it's like, I would say, I like the Beatles, and if I only know 4 songs, I know 10 songs or whatever of theirs. Every 10 songs everyone ever knows. And if someone came to me and said, I'm a big fan of the Beatles, oh wow, and they only know the 10 songs I know that everyone knows, well then you're really not a big fan of the Beatles.
Yeah.
That's how I feel on that.
Yeah, I'm a gatekeeper about a couple things.
Thank you, welcome.
Okay, yeah. Like, I've just been hiding them. I've been high grounding, so.
Yeah, talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, no.
High ground?
No, boo.
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 Boo the high ground joke.
The thing that I gatekeep like no other.
Yeah.
And I even challenge my students on them. Like, it's like the one thing, if a student I know can handle like me messing with them a little bit, like
prodding, that's good for them.
Yeah. Like, I'll see a kid come in with a Thrasher shirt. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you skate. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. Like, wait, do you know what Thrasher is? They're like, yeah, it's a clothing company. I'm like, no, it's not.
You're about to get an F.
Yeah. No, I'm like, it's a skateboard magazine. A what? A skateboard magazine.
They're like MAGA.
They're just like, what? I just like the. They're like, I just like the shirt. I'm like, okay. Like, you remember when Poser was like the worst thing you can be called, and it's like 5th grade. And like, maybe it was just me like growing up, but like if you skateboarded and somebody else was skateboarding, but like they didn't really get into it, you're like, what a poser. Like, I'm like 29 and I see a kid wearing a Thrasher shirt and I'm just like, poser.
When you see them wearing a Thrasher shirt, do you see that them symboling I'm a big fan of Thrasher?
No, I see them as like, did you wear that shirt because somebody else thought it was... Did you see an influencer?
Why are you wearing that shirt? Yeah. The why is important.
I know, but you know what? Like, I gotta think. Like, what do I do? That's on the same level.
We do the same. We all do the same stuff.
Yeah. Why did I buy Ray-Bans? They do look good on my face. But like, it's like, but why did I? I could have gone with off-brand Ray-Bans.
Well, everyone could go off-brand, but that little.
If someone's like, oh, you want some polarized glasses, like polarized sports glasses, like, yeah, do you fish? Like, no, I don't know. I don't know. We find those things. We always got to find ways to like be superior.
I know.
Even as a teacher, I got to tell myself like I'm better than these kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most unhealthy thing.
Of course.
But we do it so naturally, and it's such a part of like who we are.
I think being aware of it though is key. It's like you can kind of, you're aware, okay, I'm being this.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
We do it. It's like you don't even think you're doing it, and then you do it, and then you're like, then that thing over you, your conscious over you is going like, just quit being like that. And you're like, oh, I'm being silly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like the Thrasher thing. All right. Or whatever. It's like,
sure.
All right, bring it back.
Yeah. You're just like, they're kids.
He's a kid.
They're kids.
And I'm a kid.
I'm a kid. Yeah.
We're kids. We are kids. People look at us and go,
and
look
then
at those
kids hear this and they're like, look at those old.
Yeah, I know. You ever had
boomer?
Have you noticed? Oh.
Dude, I got called a boomer unironically, and I was like, you need to look up that.
I would pause them and say, no.
Not even close.
That's not what.
Not even close.
Come on.
That's not even what your parents are.
We're kind of on the same team.
Yeah.
And honestly, millennials are the reason that boomer has become so strong, because we've been called millennials
we ruined Chili's, we ruined TGI Fridays.
Wow.
TGI
Fridays ruined themselves.
Millennials started brewing their own beer, and so like Budweiser's, like, you know what I mean?
I just mean it's because we've been called millennials.
Sure.
When I don't want to go to work today, the boomers, okay, millennial. You're such a millennial.
Yeah.
So then we had it's like
I can't drive stick. Well, I can. It's like, yeah, that's all that existed for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, like I don't know.
Like what is the gen? What's the gen after ours? The kids nowadays?
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
Did they have that same it's not like a stereotype.
I mean,
but
we
like,
were just talking about how they didn't have, like, we didn't have phones when they were there. You know what I mean? Like, we find those things.
Well, I just mean, like, so we were called millennials a lot, and I got that term I've heard that so many. Anytime we're feeling weak, open, vulnerable, okay, millennial. Do they have that term when it comes like, okay, Gen Zer?
Well, no, actually,
like, there's nothing that flows.
So the way it works is like, so the generation before us was Gen X. Yeah. We're actually called Gen Y, and that's why Gen Z is called Gen Z.
What's after Gen Z? Is that we starting it all over?
I don't know.
Okay.
You know, climate change and stuff. They didn't.
We're not going to be here. No,
we based it around the Mayan calendar. You know, so the Mayans were like, nah. So we were like, all right. Well, like, what was Gen B? It was like Moses.
Jebediah, yeah. That's the oldest.
So like, yeah. I mean, it's like. So no, they call us millennials because, you know, we, like, our formative years were shaped around the millennium, and what they usually do is they define a generation based around a significant event. So if you're a millennial, a big portion of your life is shaped around 9/11, believe it or not. And so Gen X didn't have that life-shaping moment, so they didn't get a cool name. You know?
So they're just called. That's why they're called Gen X.
The baby boomers were given that name because when all, you know, these people came back, you know, from war, those were the kids of the greatest generation. So, and I could be getting this totally wrong. So, but
it's okay.
But yeah, like Gen X is the parents of the kids I see now.
Yeah, that makes sense because
like
they're going to be
are like
35 to 45.
Boomers. Yeah, our parents are like late boomers, like the tail end of the baby boomer generation.
That's 60, right? Something like that. 50 to 60 is.
Yeah, like late 50s, early 60s would be like the cutoff of like the baby boomers, from what I understand.
Yeah. And then Gen X, because I know millennial. If you're called a millennial, that actually goes to like nowadays current like 35.
Yeah.
Like anyone who's like 35 and younger, or 35, I guess, to like, I don't know, 20 or whatever that gap is.
No, it could be 40. No, like my.
I thought 85. You know, I've looked into this a little bit. I thought 1985 was like the kind of the cutoff where it's like, okay, 85 and above, 86 and above.
And there's always that window.
It's not real. It's kind of this made. It's really not real. Yeah. It's all made up.
Yeah, like because I consider my older brother to be Gen X, and he's like 41. You know?
He would be Gen X. I would say Gen X. Yeah.
So he grew up like within the 90s as a teenager.
He actually got to experience the 90s. Yeah. I'm 91. It's kind of like I didn't really experience the 90s at all. Because I didn't really start like understanding, kind of getting what I don't even remember.
There's no metacognition.
No, not when I'm 6. Yeah. I probably am connected more like 2000, because that's when you're kind of coming into yourself, your teens.
2000 through 2006 was like our time.
Yeah.
Everything after 2006 was like okay, now we're developing what happens next. Yeah. But when you're in middle school and you're in high school, like those are your years, right? That's like the generation definer for you.
Yeah.
Like, what was the music you listened to in high school, or the games you played in high school? Who are the popular teams? Like, who are the celebrity icons? Like, celebrity icons played just as much in the generations as anything else.
Definitely.
But
yeah. So the new generation is iGen. Is that what they're called? Have you ever heard of that iGen? Just because of the iPod. Yeah. It's
but no, that would be Gen Z, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant, Gen Z. What did I say? I thought I was talking about the one after
Yeah, well, yeah, but I guess, so iGen is after Gen Z?
No, I thought iGen was Gen Z.
Oh, see, I've heard many different things. Like, I call them the broadcast generation.
Yeah.
Because they're the first generation.
Did you hear that from someone, or is that just kind of like... Because it makes sense. It really makes sense to me. I'm like,
I don't know if I heard it from somebody, but, they really do broadcast everything they do. So, it kind of makes sense. Like, we broadcast a lot, and honestly, people in the baby boomer and Gen X, they broadcast a lot too. But it's like these kids, they've only seen people just feeling the need to broadcast.
Well, they grew up with broadcast. We didn't grow up with the ability to broadcast.
I remember really discovering what YouTube could be in 2010, and I was like, this is going to change everything. I was like, I want to be a YouTuber.
Sure.
Look at these YouTubers, they're great.
And what if you would have done that in 2010 to today? You probably would be some big-time YouTube streamer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I tried.
Maybe.
No,
if you do something for 10 years.
I actually created a YouTube channel in 2010, and I had a little series, and I got a couple. I got a few thou views.
A few thou, not bad.
On a couple of videos, and then I realized I was just being mean. I was just being mean in my videos.
What were you doing on your videos?
Just.
As an adolescent, you don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of figuring it out.
I was interviewing people at Collin College, and kind of like making fun of them without them realizing it. I mean, it was mean. It was mean.
Oh. Like a condescending little kid.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the awkward interviews that are really popular, where it's like, here's this guy, and like it's like all gas no brakes.
Oh, yeah.
Like all gas no brakes.
Which I love.
Yeah, it's great. It's
so
great.
funny.
But like, you know, they don't realize that like the purpose of what I'm doing is actually going against like
what you think you want to see on this.
For sure.
It's kind of like you're the butt of the
I
joke.
called it socially awkward.
Okay.
So like, yeah.
Did you purposely find people that were like a little more awkward? You thought that would be good views? I mean,
yeah, like,
and
you know, I don't want to talk about it too much because it was just one of those times where you're like, I'm just.
You were like, yeah, you were just figuring it out.
Yeah, I was just
man.
like, you know, this is what I need to do, I guess, and this is content. Oh, this is content.
Well,
it's like
content,
it's like, you know,
yeah.
the kids who are like, we have to prank, and it's like that's what was content. So like, I did, you know, when I was watching YouTube, it was, hey, look at these funky interviews of these strange people.
Yeah. Well, that's also like when Jackass was like going. You know what I mean? Jackass and what are some of the other shows that were around during that time? I don't know. Jackass.
I mean, Viva La Bam. Like,
Viva La Bam.
Yeah.
Something Boys.
Yeah, Wild Boys.
Wild Boys.
You know, the whole Jackass crew. You know.
Yeah.
God, I mean, that was great TV.
That was the best
But
TV.
maybe the worst thing for us.
Yeah.
Like, what do you learn from that?
Nothing. I mean, nothing.
I loved it though.
Oh, I
like
loved
Jackass 2.
To this day, that's the funniest movie I've ever watched in my life because of the time of the age I was.
Yeah.
Plus,
yes,
people doing those
Again,
things.
it was like right around the
seen.
Borat time and stuff like that too. Like
Same.
we were ready for that. We were receptive to that content.
The age that we were was primed to think that was the funniest thing on the planet.
And now I see some comedies and I'm like, I'm just not in that.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that. I'm too old.
Now when I watch Jackass, I'm just like, oh, that's gonna hurt. Like, stop. Like I kind of want him to stop. I'm like, don't.
I've busted.
You're like 45. Like,
I've
stop.
busted my knees like multiple times by now, and so now I just think about like, oh, if I did anything like that, my knees would be gone.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst thing to say when you're 29. Like I've already like blown out my knees, and you're like, God, what have you been doing? Like, why are you so unhealthy? Like,
Yeah, it's like health. Come on, bro.
Yeah, it's just like I can't. I don't know. I hate milk, you know. So.
Well, I think that might be a scam too that they created by the milk industry. You know, strong bones drink milk. Maybe
Maybe
not.
I'm an idiot when it comes to that. Like,
I am kind of too. I'm into health and fitness, but I haven't looked into like the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it does calcium.
It is hard to like just say like, yeah, scientists know what they're talking about when they're the same people that came up with the food pyramid.
Sure.
And they're like, you need to eat 10 loaves of bread a day.
Eat all that grain. It's like, why am I feeling so tired?
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, then you look where they're being funded from, right?
Yeah.
So these scientists, you know, you got to drink your milk, and it's like that dude's getting $100,000 from Borden.
Yeah.
Of course he's gonna say drink milk, and they're pretty much telling him, hey, tell these kids to drink some milk.
Yeah.
You know. So, and then you got a couple athletes on there with the milk stashes.
Yeah.
That kind of died down. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them, but how much are they paying those guys?
I don't know. It's like McNabb when he was doing Chunky Soup commercials. Like, was he really eating Chunky Soup? Like, does he really open up a can of Chunky Soup and it's like, it's just like my mom used to. No, he's not. He's got like a personal chef. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
he's nothing genuine.
I agree.
Authenticity, man. Again.
Well, that's what we're looking for nowadays.
Existentialism, authenticity.
Let's wrap it all back up to back to existentialism.
Yeah.
It almost feels ridiculous to go to that topic when we've gone through Chunky Soup from Pokemon. It's hard to get serious again with those topics.
But you know what? Existentialism doesn't have to be serious. It's just the study of existence.
Which is silly.
What is existence? It could be Pokemon today.
Yeah.
You know, nobody has defined that life has to have a meaning over the course of a lifetime. Today, the meaning of life can be, let's talk on a podcast. Tomorrow, the meaning of life. You could have a new meaning of life every day if you wanted to.
It sounds exhausting.
I'm a firm believer of that.
I think you're right, though. I think you could. Sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
But you could.
But you could live your life that way.
You could live. And I'm sure people are doing something along those lines. It sounds a little crazy, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you do kind of want to figure, okay, what is the meaning? And then you feel like you're withering away at, like, I don't know, the leaves or, like, the dust on it. And you're just trying to get to what is the core of this thing. And then once you get to the core, whatever you're doing, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
You know? But if you're switching to apple without kind of digging a little bit, it's kind of like, all right, you got to dig into that core.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Well,
life.
Yeah.
Existentialism.
Good stuff.
What a funny What an interesting topic to go down that led through a bunch.
I mean, again, you talk about life here, talking about existentialism. That's all it boils down to.
Yeah.
But you can connect anything to anything. That's the English teacher in me. Why are the shades brown? Okay, I don't know. The author decided he wanted to.
So, I want to go. No, I do want to go down that because I did always feel like anytime they were like, oh, what does the umbrella mean to this? And sometimes, you're looking at painting and like, the umbrella means this with the rain coming down. This, it's like, maybe he just did an umbrella.
Yeah, there's always going to be the camp that says like unless the author spoke
specifically.
But I think it just depends on the work that you're looking at. If you feel like colors brought up by an author are repetitive enough to where they become a motif, something that builds on a theme, builds on an idea, to where it's like, okay, I can clearly see that this means something. I'll give you an example. Breaking Bad. Like yellow and mustard colors, anytime you see it, it's associated with danger. But it takes you like looking back at it to understand.
I didn't know that.
But it's there. Like, when he gets diagnosed with cancer in the first episode, the only thing he can focus on is the mustard on the doctor's shirt. Gus constantly wears like mustard shirts, like yellow shirts. Yeah. You go back and you look and you can say it's nothing, but it's like, well, then why was it always this way? And so I think when you can go and you can say, here's the connection, right? Then you go for it. But if an author just says, in a room with blue shades and things like that, if you feel like the shades aren't that important or they don't keep coming up or a color keeps coming up, then, maybe it's not. Sometimes you really have to read the entire thing and go back and ask, was that deliberate or was that just a detail?
What is the theme that I'm seeing?
We were talking about The Great Gatsby. It's like the curtains are billowing and things like that. And then Tom comes into the room and closes things up, and then it kind of dies down. Well, if you come back and realize like, oh, Tom really kind of is this precursor to like death or like the death of like a spirit. Yeah. Well, you can see the connection there. Why would Fitzgerald write that scene in? Because he's bringing it back. And so but he might say like, hey, Danny, the wind was blowing,
he was just closing them.
He just closed it, dude. Like, I have to add continuity. He could say that and be like, you know what, I'm an idiot, I'm a moron.
But he probably didn't. Not
we
in
looked
that
at
case.
Kafka's In the Penal Colony, right? Like man, it felt like things were pretty damn deliberate, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And then I think it goes back to what you're saying. You got to know who the author is or who the painter is, and when you know that person a little bit, you can say, I can kind of see what they're trying to say with what they're presenting as their art.
And I think it depends on the story. Like if I were to go back and look at Harry Potter, maybe the color of something doesn't mean as much in a story like that, because there's all this other stuff going on that maybe J.K. Rowling isn't really getting into the nitty-gritty of colors. Yeah. But she might get into the nitty-gritty of like actions or things
the
like
character of her each one of the kids or something where you're like, oh, that's important.
I think there's English teachers that like take it too far. And you try to be like, you don't want to be Dead Poets Society sometimes, where it's just like,
what did you think of Dead Poet Society?
Here's the thing, I haven't even seen it.
Oh,
but,
how
like,
have
we
you
make
not
funny
seen
of that. Like, I don't know.
The only reason I watched, and I hadn't seen it for a long time.
Like we kind of say that when we want to be like the English teacher that's like, right? Yeah. Like I get like that way about some
Carpe
things.
diem. Yeah. I watched it like maybe 2 years ago because I was like, I should see this. We talk about this. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was an okay movie. Yeah. But we do kind of bring it up hokey.
Yeah, I mean,
we kind of give it a.
You don't want to be that because it's like it seems played out.
Yeah.
Right. The last thing you want to do is be a high school student that walks into a class and the teacher's like posed. Like deep in thought, and they're like, literature. Like, no, yeah. My kids want to hear me sometimes be like, I don't know why that.
Well, I think when you're can jump into that space and then you jump out, they realize like, oh, that really was an important part. You know what I mean? Because if you're always in that, then it's like, what's real?
Them. And maybe I think one of the things that teachers do. And, we may or may not be aware of it, but maybe we overdo it so that way we just teach them, like, think this way, think this way, think this way. Like, be open to the idea that this could mean something. And then you can challenge it. Again, like, be open to a new idea, like, be able to challenge it and defend your own idea. If you're open to the idea that the blue curtains mean something, you can challenge it, and then you can defend your notion that they don't mean anything.
It's all back to that. Yeah. I think, that you can do that with any. Well, like, that's anything. Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is.
Yeah, I was just, when I was younger, I was like, quit putting so much on something.
Yeah.
But then, and I didn't know, you told me about the mustard thing and Breaking Bad. Now I kind of want to go back and watch Breaking Bad and see yellow.
Yeah.
And I bet I would see yellow all up and down that thing.
Yeah.
And I bet you're right with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And did I make that great revelation? No. Somebody had to show me.
But did they show you on a different piece and said yellow means this, or did you connect that from Breaking Bad?
No, somebody literally made a video and they're like, here's all the time yellow shows up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like, wow, yeah, cool.
Yeah, that does show up a lot. Yeah.
But it happens from studying it, Like, I've read The Great Gatsby like 1,000 times by now. Like, I've read In the Penal Colony a couple dozen.
Yeah.
And then, like, even as we were looking over it yesterday, like, I found new things that I was like, oh, maybe that means this, blah, blah, blah.
And you'll do that every time you read that.
Every time you read something. Every time you listen to something. Listen to a song. And sometimes you're like, I didn't even notice that. Like, little music thing.
Sure.
That's the beauty of, like, art, right? Is that there's always something new.
Yeah, you notice those background instruments, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was in there.
You can look at a painting, and you can see it for what it is the first time, and then the second time, you can look at the specific details. You can look at the facial, you can try to get the deeper meaning. And then maybe on the fourth and fifth time, you're looking at the texture of the paint on the canvas. Does that have some, like, part to play?
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe I always hated when they did that because I never got it. You know what I mean? It's my own ego being like, that's not it, because I don't see it. But, like, really, did I really spend enough time looking at that piece like that guy did?
It's because sometimes we look at modern art and we're like, yeah, okay.
Nice lines, bro.
Yeah, and so, but again, open yourself up, challenge it, defend.
I know.
Open, challenge, defend.
Open, challenge, defend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's with anything.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Turn that into a shirt.
Hey, that'd be a powerful shirt.
Yeah.
And then people would ask you about that, and you go on that, and then you could change their life.
You know what? If you want real influence, just make you can make that the pretext or intro to your podcast, and just be like, "We're the." No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, run with that.
Yeah, you're like.
I'm like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I start. Yeah, make that a company.
No, it's not a new idea, but
I like it though. I'm glad you brought it up, and
simple.
I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to absorb that and hold on to that, because I think so much information. We're reading information, we're watching so much coming in that it's like, absorb some of this stuff and remember some of this stuff. So when I'm shitting on someone for whatever, being a gatekeeper like I am, hey, bring it back.
We're all gatekeepers though. Right?
I know.
Yeah. But again, I'm excited about your podcast and where it's headed.
Thank you, sir.
It's gonna be fun.
Well, I think we did about 2.5 hours from what I'm seeing. What a trip.
I know. People are going to be like, "What? Why am I listening to these people?"
They might. Or they might enjoy it.
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really do hope anyone that's listening actually enjoyed this podcast. I don't know who's next. I don't know what's next with this thing. It's all kind of, we're figuring it out as we go. This was episode 1.
Yeah. Which it's an honor.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
Did you have fun? I hope you had fun.
Absolutely.
Great.
I mean, it's just fun having a conversation anyway. And to just like open up the space to be like, let's have that conversation. I want to hear what you think. I'd be glad to share what I think and just go from there. But yeah, no, it was an honor.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Danny Malooly.
Thanks.
Get it out. Thanks, brother.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. See y'all later.